And we're live. Hello, Friday party people. Hope you're all doing well. And we are back. Another week and another genre to discuss. And we have a very special guest, Mr. Rick from The Dreadful Minutes. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. How you doing?
What's up, Rick?
Doing awesome. Talking about a genre I like very much. Matter of fact.
Right on. Hello to the 12 people watching. Hope you're all doing well.
Hello, folks. And to anybody that didn't notice, Pat did a really cool doom metal collection update over on his Ground Zero Salem channel earlier today. So if you haven't watched that, go check it out. Tonight, we are all children of doom.
Yes, we are.
So, and we didn't coordinate that with Pat. It just kind of worked out in a very timely fashion. So,
weird.
Everybody's in a doomy mood, I guess.
Yes.
But,
so Doom, here we are. What do you guys think?
Rick, what are your thoughts on Doom as a genre overall?
Well, that was the thing when you approached me about the topic. The first thing in mind was, okay, there's so many dividends to this, and as I was pulling these records together, I was mentioning it earlier, is there's a lot of regions where music comes from, but I noticed the majority of, at least my collection, is going to be Sweden, Italy, the UK, US, very dominant with a lot of stuff coming out of there. Even though I know there's some, other countries that put out some good stuff, and this is probably a good platform to maybe expose some of that. But at the same time, it might be UK heavy.
That's okay. Absolutely. Yep. Marty, what's your take on Doom as a genre?
It's a important part of the whole metal pantheon, and I love Doom. And do I listen to Doom all the time? I do not. I just have to be in the mood for it. I find my younger years, the years of absorbing as much metal as I could, I listened to a lot more Doom when I was younger. And the older I've gotten and perhaps beaten down a bit by the way life can go, I try to avoid it because it, as we all know, music can have quite an impact on your mood. And sometimes you just don't want to have that stimulus, that extra stimulus making things a little more miserable. You know what I mean? So, I try to avoid it. Sometimes I'm in the mood for it. It's like everything. It's important in a collection. The longer you get into this and the more you collect, I think it's important for metalheads to diversify their palette and have other genres to pull from. And Doom is not something I have a vast amount of, but I've got a lot of the classics, and I do enjoy. All the stuff I'm showing tonight has had some sort of an impact on me for sure. Some of these are just downright classics, and pulling out some of the shit, it's like, God, I haven't listened to this in a while. I should listen to this again. This is so fucking good. But that's where I'm at with it. How about you, Alan?
For me, it's definitely one of my favorite genres of heavy metal. Obviously like new wave of British heavy metal and power metal a lot, but Doom is very, very high up there. But as you said, Marty, it's something I won't listen to it just all the time. I'm not randomly going to think, oh, gee, I want to go listen to this Doom metal album right now. When I'm in the mood for it, I go really deep on it and will listen to it for a long time. I know, I think it was summer 2018. I played almost nothing but Doom for months. But yeah, I like it a lot. It's got a lot of characteristics, I think, that appeal to heavy metal fans. It is very heavy. Doom metal has nothing very lightweight about it, in at least 99% of the time. There's no questioning that it is bona fide heavy music. It is very emotive music, and it can touch on a lot of emotions. It's not just sadness, but it can touch a lot on fear. It can touch on despair. It can touch on frustration and anger, but it approaches anger, from a different standpoint than, say, death metal or thrash metal. Doom can still have a very aggressive edge to it and help you process, and deal with those kind of emotions. But it does so, with a different sonic structure than what you get in other styles of heavy metal. And as Rick mentioned, correctly so, there's a lot of little subcategories within doom metal that it really is its own, tree on the whole heavy metal landscape. And it's branched out into so many cool little styles and little scenes that draw on some of the same influences, but others don't. There are a lot of these bands we're going to talk about tonight that they all fall kind of under this doom umbrella, but after that, they don't have much in common. And doom also does a good job of encroaching on some other styles of heavy metal very closely. It was something I noticed in trying to pick albums for tonight. It was really hard to do so because I'm like, does this count as doom metal, or is it a little too epic to be shown off on Doom Night? Is it a little too deathy to show up on Doom Night? Doom really can kind of, reach its, tendrils out into some of these other styles. So it has a lot of appeal that way too, I think, because it's not just one static sound. It's
also,
it can draw a lot.
The theatrical element of it too, which a lot of doom does have. I don't know about your backgrounds, but I had a very religious upbringing, and that was an element of what attracted me to it. It was sort of the antagonist of what they were producing. So it was not the kind of music that my mom would have approved of me bringing in there. If I brought a Pentagram record and said I'm going to listen to this, so I'm going to put Stevie Wonder away and listen to this, that probably would have been looked at very happily. But like you were saying, just many derivatives. So it doesn't all have that sort of a religious sort of a connection to it, or anti-religion, depending on where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. But I find that the appeal may be different for everybody. But I know, like in my case, for example, so I'm glad, like you said, maybe you didn't come from a religious background. So it's very interesting to see what might have drawn you to it, other than just good music. Like there might be some other sort of a rounded aesthetics behind it. So for me, it was the visual and everything else too that was very appealing, the whole package.
That's a good point, Rick. Yeah, there's a lot of these bands have strong visual presentations. I didn't catch the entire comment there, but it looked like it dealt with pacing, and that's true. Even though we think of doom metal as being very slow, it can move at very different speeds. You can have some doom metal that's actually, relatively at least mid-paced, somewhat up-tempo. And then you can have doom metal that moves excruciatingly slowly, once you get, to the, sort of funeral end of the spectrum. So that, again, there's a lot of variety within it. They can, sometimes people think of doom as like, oh, it's kind of boring because it's so slow. But like Brian pointed out, when done right, they can really use that slow pace to their advantage and make it crushingly heavy at the same time.
And from a musician standpoint, I don't think people realize, I think people think of like fast music as, harder to play. And, you start getting super technical. That level of technicality is tough, but it takes a very talented musician to write something so purposefully slow, yet be able to maintain a listener's attention through the whole thing. And as a musician, you really have to pay attention where you're at in a song. Yeah, I'm playing slow. I'm playing these heavy, slow power chords. But if you let your mind wander for a second, you're going to miss a transition. You're going to lose your count. I mean, there is an art and a skill that comes with playing slow. And playing slow with purpose, playing slow with the listener in mind. You have to try to entertain as well as enchant and depress, and whatever your music you're trying to do with your music. There's a lot that's going on there. I mean, a lot of bands probably approach this from a very subconscious level when it's time to write, but there's a beauty and a skill that comes with this style of music that should not go unacknowledged, I think.
No, that's a good point, Marty. I know I've read in interviews with musicians from doom bands that they're very quick to point out that it is a hard style to play because when you're going slow, you can't hide your mistakes.
No.
If you mess something up, it's going to be very noticeable.
A wrong note or a wrong chord is going to jump out like.
Yeah, when you're playing 100 miles an hour, if you miss a note or you drop a beat somewhere here or there, you folks may miss it, or it's maybe a little more forgivable. But yeah, when you're going slow, those little mistakes really stand out because there's not as much going on. You can't hide behind it.
I'm not a professional musician, but I can imagine the metronome just going at a really, really slow pace and having to keep timing. That must be even harder.
Yeah.
In my head, it's what I'm imagining, just to sort of know when to go, when that droning riff ends.
Yep.
Yep.
Transitions.
Yeah. Well, shall we get into it, fellas?
Yeah, let's get this set up here. Get the right. There we go. Hi, Rick. What do you got?
Start us
All
off,
right.
Rick.
I'm going to piggyback off. So Pat did his Doom video. It wasn't all Doom. He did some sludge and other things too along the lines. But he did bring up one band, and he kind of stopped at a certain point, and I'm like, good, because I can kind of piggyback from there. And this band is the Gates of Slumber. So if you guys remember, he showed this, the Wretch. This was the last full length that they put out. And this band has met some kind of a fatal ending in a way, just because, as you know, was it Jason McCash died of I think what was an overdose. Another band member had a heat stroke, but they managed to pull off one more EP right after this. So that is, there we go. So this is Stormcrow. And the interesting about this, it's got this little logo right here. Remember that?
Yeah.
This
Car
is
company
part of
trying
that
to get into the music industry. Yeah.
And this was their last outing.
Yep.
And I almost want to take an eraser and just kind of do something with that, but it's kind of stuck there for all eternity. But this is one of those bands that it took me a while to get into, but they ended really strong. I think between the Wretch and this, I find that here we go. It's just the whole thing was just I don't know. It just in a way that I know some bands end on a sour note, but it wasn't for these guys. And I know that Carl, that's the main guy behind this, went on to do the spiritual successor to this with the Wretch, which you're probably familiar with. Right here. So here's a picture disc for him. And this is pretty good too. The thing is that I'm not really sure if this band is going to do anything else. They put this out, and so this, of course, this is named after the last album that they did, this full length. And then they did a follow up to this, which was digital only. It was named after the song on the Wretch. That was the Bastards Born. Oh, fun fact. So they got together, Carl put together the band together with different members, and they did a live show last year. So they were able to do that, but there was 2 tracks that was not able to make it on that live show because the guy forgot to hit the record button.
Oh, jeez.
Oh.
Yikes.
Yeah. What the hell track was that? The Scourge of Drunkenness. That was the track that was cut out. Yeah.
Drunkenness probably had something to do with the record button not getting hit either.
Maybe so. Yeah, that's a good pick to start us off, Rick. Gates of Slumber was definitely one of the real pure sounding doom metal bands for the 21st century doom scene. Yeah, I think kind of like you. I felt like their first couple albums, it took them a little while to find their footing. Those first albums have some very good tracks on them, but some of the tracks don't quite come together. But yeah, I had pulled this one, their third album, Conqueror, and by the time that one comes up, they this one they get really tight sounding on. You can tell they've really found their sound by this point. And after this, they got signed to Metal Blade for Hymns of Blood and Thunder, and that one is really amazing sounding too. I was really lucky and got to see the band live one time when they were on I think it was Caravan of Doom Festival, if I remember right. Happened to play in Asheville, North Carolina, and I got to see them play it. And they were amazing live. It was a really nice kind of small bar setting, and they sounded incredible. They were so tight live. I chatted with them very briefly after the set. Really nice guys. They were really, really happy that people had enjoyed the set and stuff. So yeah, that's a great pick. You couldn't pick like a more pure example of doom metal to kick us off with, I don't think.
You got to see the original lineup, too, I would think.
Yeah, it was it was about the time Hymns of Blood and Thunder had either just come out or it was getting released soon after that.
Very cool.
You're up, Alan.
Okay, well, I'm just going to start with the obvious beginnings and origins with Black Sabbath, and for me this is the heaviest of the Black Sabbath albums. Folks can say obviously the self-titled has strong influences on doom metal to come, and so does a lot of stuff on Paranoid, but for me this is the one that just really feels the doomiest. Part of that's the production. It has that incredible bottom heavy sound that's very exaggerated throughout most of this stuff, but it also has just a lot of tracks that if a band put these out today, nobody would hesitate to think of them as just pure doom metal classics. But they're not all just in that heavy style. You have one of my favorites on here is making sure I sometimes I screw the name up. Solitude, the one with Tony Iommi doing the flute solo, kind of taking a page from Jethro Tull, and Ozzy doing these very quiet, clean, and very well done sad vocals. It's a very unusual song for Black Sabbath in this era, but it fits really well. It invokes this very sad vibe so nicely, and it's acoustic music. But doom obviously owes a lot to Black Sabbath, and for me this is the one I think of in Sabbath's catalog as being the doomiest. So we're going to start with Master of Reality over here.
Before doom and everything else, like what was the sad music genre? It was blues. I think what people gravitated towards, and their early material was very bluesy.
Yeah,
with a little bit of jazzy drum alongside that. So what seems like a natural progression.
And the whole Black Sabbath style is it maintained a very bluesy feel to it through its entire duration.
Yeah, I mean, Geezer Butler, has said, over and over throughout the years that, he always thought of Black Sabbath as a blues rock kind of band. That's where they definitely came from. They infused other things with it along the way. They made it, they had, sort of, the elements of blues. They had some elements, taken from sort of the heavy rock and, psych scene maybe, but they made it darker, which, is, that's always an element with doom metal is make it dark. That you get the into that.
That was a band that set a certain template too. I think a lot of the stoner doom guys have derivatives of that too. I mean, songs like Sweetleaf, like I hear it all the time. It's just the way and the riff structure, and it just everybody just piggybacks, off that template.
Yeah, I mean, and Sweetleaf, we'll see if we get into that territory tonight. But Sweetleaf is obviously really huge early influence on the whole stoner doom branch. So it's again the same tree, but really different branch on that tree. But yep. So I figured I'd start with kind of the roots of doom, perhaps. But Marty, what are you going to start with?
Well, since you showed Sabbath, I'd be remiss if I didn't follow it up with this Candlemass Nightfall. Leaf. I think Sabbath was one of Leaf's favorite bands, so you might as well. I mean, this was the first Candlemass album I heard. Obviously, this album is very much the blueprint for a lot of bands as well. Other than the sweet teased hair and the lipstick. I don't know if that's lipstick or if those Swedes are just very, very rosy red lips. But
fun fact: they got their hair done at the same parlor where Europe was hanging out.
Or if they brought more people in at once, they could get a discount. Maybe that's
friends and family.
But I mean, this obviously is very much a very influential, groundbreaking album for this style of music. But for me, I'm a Messiah guy. I'm a Messiah guy, and there's a song on here. I believe it's Mourner's Lament. The lyrics: a father by his son's grave, weeping, thinking about his life and weeping about the fact that his son died. And if I'm listening to this on a CD, I skip over that track because it always brings me to tears. I don't know if that's part of being a dad, but just hearing the, Messiah so effectively conveyed that sorrow through that particular song, it's just gut-wrenching to me. And this album is just so well done. There's a lot of atmospherics on here, symphonic flourishes here and there, and it's just a very epic, amazing doom album. Yes, Ancient Dreams is great, a little more aggressive. Tales of Creation, I think, is often overlooked, but that's a really good, solid record. It's a bit long, but man, it's just so well done, and the songs are so well written. Although there isn't as much of the atmospheric flourishes on that album, but it's just well written, heavy fucking doom. These guys are great, and there's a reason why they're still churning out music, because they built such a foundation for themselves, based on the Sabbath formula.
I made the mistake of buying that first in picture disc for him, and I didn't want to play it. I ended up framing it. I gotta get another regular copy of it.
Right.
Yep. That's a great pick, Martin. Yeah, I picked the exact same Candlemass as my go-to. I'd agree with your assessment on all of those. Epicus is a fantastic album, but Messiah is the sound of doom metal from that era for me. And the way they start this album off with him, just that whole I bind unto myself the strong name of the Trinity. And then they just drop the hammer on that motherfucker. So heavy coming in over the top of that.
Yep.
That gives me chills every time I play that. And I've heard this album for decades.
They got the genre hammer on you. Like, the title's not subtle, like for Epicus. You're like,
not at all. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think I can guess what this is.
But yeah, no, it's got so many classic songs. The one I like, the classic, of course, is At the Gallows End. It was the first Candlemass song I ever heard. It was on one of those Best of Metal Blade compilations, and I was just literally obsessed with that song. I could not stop playing it. I remember going to the record store in town, where this was when I was in college, and I was just like, I hope they have a Candlemass CD. I hope they have a Candlemass CD. And they had one. It was Ancient Dreams. And they had it priced for it was like $16.99 or something, which was a lot for me. And I remember I literally had to ask the folks, I'm like, this is a stupid question, but do you people do layaway? And of course they looked at me like I'm a fucking moron. Like, of course not. And so I had to wait until, the end of the month. And for like a week, I'm just like, oh, please let that be there when I get back. Please let that be go. I had just I was just starting at college. I hadn't realized yet that nobody in that town gave a fuck about heavy metal but me.
Yeah.
But yeah, as soon as I got some money at the end of the month, first thing I did was go to that store and just like, please let it still be here. And it was still there. And that was the one record I could afford to buy that month, was Ancient Dreams. And I played it to death. But Nightfall is the go-to for me. And the track for me is Samaritan. It's such, the epic tale. It's got kind of the religious overtones, but it's a very calm song, a very peaceful song, a very moving song. It's not sad, it's the death of this character, but it's not sad either. It's, in a strange way, uplifting, and musically it's brilliant. They just hit on all these emotions, and then tell this great little story wrapped up in this song. It's perfect. I love it to death.
And the thing about Old Nightfall and all that stuff, it's just amazing to me how they've got like the Sabbath formula as the foundation, but Messiah's operatic Gregorian monk styled vocals give it a religious, I don't want to say, it just feels very religious. It feels like they're in a church performing this. And just the lyrics are very biblical without being Christian. You know what I mean? Without being preachy.
Messiah brought the theatrical element of it, like with the totally. Visual.
Yep, and his vocals were so over the top, yet perfect for the style, and it crossed genres. Like I said, it felt like you're listening to like an audio depiction of tales from the Bible, without without it being judgmental or preachy. I mean, it was just great storytelling and just a perfect package of what doom could be, and ended up, people latched on to what they were doing. But
and when you get to like into the solos and stuff, I mean, it's really well done. A lot of that, it's great traditional metal structures throughout the stuff. They're not relying on playing slow all the time. That these guys, there's a lot of hot shot guitar work going on in those solos all the time.
Oh yeah,
that it really keeps you entertained.
They really raised the bar for everybody else too. Just getting into this, I mean, the American scene, everybody else was happening. You had Trouble, and those guys, they were more in that sort of rock root of things, whereas you had the guys from Sweden, kind of saying, hey, we're trying to generate a certain soundscape and imagery of what our interpretation of doom is.
Yeah, I think there's so many bands still not only in doom metal go for that sound, but this is where epic metal owes a lot to this early Candlemass sound as well. That there's a strong cross pollination right there.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, I think we're starting real strong with these three.
Yeah.
No pressure, Rick.
Okay. Well, let me just say, Alan, you did an amazing Pentagram video.
Thank you.
Through the deep dive, which I always enjoy your deep dives. But I need to ask you, did you review your choices?
I reviewed them carefully.
So that was my my introduction to them back in the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a picture disc of this.
Nice.
So let me take it out of the sleeve. So Smart Records did a reissue. So they had a proper cover with that image.
Very cool.
Kind of up side by side. So I don't know what
you told me about that in the comments, and I wanted to see it because I've never seen that. That's really neat.
I may as well just show you. But yeah, I mean, I had no other reference to go by with these guys, and the name was already appealing to me. So I was like, okay, I was expecting something a little more, I don't know, a little more heavy metal, a little more thrashy, and the fact that it was what it was, it took me a little bit to adjust, especially Bobby's voice. But it grew on me, and that's where I started the whole Pentagram rabbit hole. So, I don't know where your favorites are in the as far as the discography, but I still think they're putting out good stuff to this day, and I don't know where they're going to go from here. I know Bobby's got another side project going, but he's sort of a little unpopular with his personality lately. Let's just say.
Yep.
Some things happening there.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to whip that one out.
Yeah, no, that's a really good album, and I think it was a lot of people's introduction to Pentagram, especially right there in the '90s. That they had been quiet for most of the 1990s. The previous album came out at a time when everybody was obsessed with death metal and black metal, and it kind of got overlooked. So yeah, that Review Your Choices, the coverage it got in Metal Maniacs, I think helped quite a bit too. That it really made people not only aware that this band is still going, but it was the first time a lot of people learned about the fact that this band went back almost 30 years at that point, and folks got really interested in, holy crap, what's all this 70s stuff they're talking about? Didn't know that existed even, and it kind of got Relapse jump started on doing the anthology First Day Here collections for them.
Yeah, there's actually a version with the 7-inch, with the Macabre 7-inch that was included with that. And that's the one that always seems to go first, and it goes for stupid money online. I was looking for that one for myself, and I was just like, all right, maybe they will reissue that one at some point.
Yep.
And get it at a regular price. But yeah, but that's another one. It's just looking at the I don't know, just the high boots and everything else they were wearing at the time. They didn't have any sense of what the fashion should be. It's just, I don't know, I just find it a little funny.
There famously is a story that once upon a time, and this one is true, that they auditioned for a couple of members of Kiss when Kiss was in their neck of the woods. That they somehow got. I don't remember which two. I think it was probably
Gene and Paul.
Yeah, I was going to say I think it was Gene and Paul, but yeah, and it couldn't have gone worse. Like, two of the guys got stuck at work late. They were janitors at a high school, so they literally show up to the rehearsal still wearing the janitor jumpsuits covered in 8th grade puke and poopies and stuff. And that supposedly according to legend that Gene or Paul or maybe both commented just like the rundown was like, the bassist has bad acne, the drummer can't, the drummer's fat, and the other guy can't play. Why are we wasting our time looking at these guys, at these losers?
That player looks like a statue. I think it was the other one.
Yeah.
And your singer's ugly.
It's just it couldn't have gone worse for them. They were a band that always seemed to, they had some chances, and every time it just turned to dust.
Well, the changing lineups didn't help either. Again, probably mainly due to Bobby.
Yep. It's always been an issue for sure. Yeah, when the guy is on, he's great, but he's off more than he's on, and sadly, and yeah, it's cost him some opportunities over the years. But yeah, you've got to mention him for sure. I picked the self-titled because this and Be Forewarned are the two I go back to the most. But yeah, there's tons of stuff. I will not talk about them for an hour because I already did that a week or two ago. Folks can go check out that video if they want to. But yeah, they're definitely another one of those sort of pillars of doom metal. Just the stuff they did in the 80s alone merits them a pretty high place in the pantheon, I think.
I know I got into them later, just being younger. And when I first saw that, I was suspecting something darker, like Venom. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I think getting into them, I realized it was a very different sort of band. But that's a good one.
Rick, you're getting a big time echo. I don't know if you're noticing it, Alan, or if it's just me.
Sometimes a little bit, not consistent, but some.
Can everybody hear it? Is it showing up on I don't know.
We can hear you. It's like like you're in a canyon.
Right. I can go back to the laptop microphone.
Why don't you go back to that?
We'll cross on it and see how it goes.
All right.
And while you're doing that, we'll talk to Mr. Allen about his next choice.
All right. We seem to be hitting a lot of the sort of, Titans of Doom here early on. So let's keep on that. The sort of natural successors to the Messiah era of Candlemass for me was Solitude Eternus. These guys had that same kind of very elegant, classy, ethereal sound about them. They didn't have the religious overtone as much as 80s era Candlemass did, but they still did very good at evoking a lot of those same kind of emotions, having the kind of traditional metal structures in the songs, but definitely wrapped in layers of doomy atmosphere and aura. People, I remember when this came out, people just thought, the cover image really encapsulated the mood of the album very well, with just kind of, the loner headbanger, hanging out there by himself, obviously reflecting on something. He's not had a good day, maybe not had a good week, and, kind of working through those emotions on his own. Lowe is an incredible vocalist. The stuff on here is really, again, has that same, I think they owed a lot to Candlemass, having that same sort of, classical song structure almost. Incredible stuff. They, after a couple albums, they did some albums that were much heavier than this. Later on, they did some different albums that were much, I don't know, but, he will be right here waiting when you figure it out. Yeah, I got a Richard Marx joke in. That's weird even for me. Let's forget about it. But yeah, they did so much by their third album, Through the Darkest Hour. That one is very heavy. It goes a little bit more towards the Master of Reality, Sabbath kind of style of heaviness. And later albums, would be a little different too. But I always gravitate back to this one. This is far and away my favorite from the band. Through the Darkest Hour has some crushingly heavy songs that can't be overlooked. Also, the Downfall album, I love a lot.
Alone is also, I like Alone too. Is that the name of it?
That was the last one, I think. Yeah.
Alone is the last one, yeah. That one, it just never clicked with me as much as the others, but I never played it as much as the others, so not as fair a comparison. But yeah, in terms of sort of we're laying the foundations of Doom here really well with our early picks. Solitude Eternus has to be right there next to the Candlemasses of the world.
Alan, do you know, maybe there's a reason why that one hasn't really been reissued properly? It's like criminally not available?
That's a fair question. I don't know, Rick. It was an RC release, I think. Yeah, it was a Road Racer release. Do we know who's got the rights to their catalog at this point? Are they handling stuff, or have they passed it off, or has it just gotten kind of stuck in the vault?
A lot of the RC stuff been reissued on vinyl by that Music on Vinyl label? Isn't that?
I'm not
aware of.
I'm not sure.
There's definitely bootlegs out there, but obviously.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting that Lowe ended up joining Candlemass at some point towards. Yep. Well, I wish I could have said the end of their career, but it's not. It's but King of the Grey Islands, he sings his ass off on that record. I was blown away by that record, to be completely honest. And just the passion and power in his voice. And then it went to Death Magic Doom, and it's like all the inspiration was gone. He was basically following the riffs verbatim, and the choruses were very lame. It's like it sounded like a similar singer to the King of the Grey Islands, but I also heard that they had a different singer on the demos for King of the Grey Islands who wrote all the vocal parts, and Robert Lowe basically came in and just sang what that guy did, but threw his own style on it.
Oh,
so
you're better.
It came to the music on Death Magic Doom. It was just Robert Lowe, talking essentially over those riffs. I don't know, but King of the Grey Islands is another Candlemass album that shouldn't be passed over. It's a good album.
Yep, absolutely.
And that goes to me. And I really don't know where I should go with this, but I'm going to start here. I got a bunch of different varying styles of Doom here, some of which many folks probably won't even think is Doom. But this was a big band for me early on. It's My Dying Bride.
Oh, yeah.
Symphonaire, Infernus. Oh, it's all Latin or whatever. But this first mini CD is crushing. Absolutely great. The title track, super heavy, low Doom, with a symphony behind it. Kind of unique. I've always kind of gravitated towards the Death Doom stuff. Their follow-up album, As the Flower Withers, there's some fast stuff on here. Is it a straight-up Doom album? It really isn't. There's some death metal on here. There's a lot of different twists and turns, and then the singles, I Am the Bloody Earth, and the Thrash of Naked Limbs. All this, to me, is classic My Dying Bride era. I also like Turn Loose the Swans, though the Aaron shift from the pure death vocals to more clean singing. The first time I heard that album, I'm thinking, man, I could tell it was the writing on the wall. And sure enough,
The Angel in the Dark River.
The Angel in the Dark River came out, and I was pissed. That album was such a departure for me. I know so many people are they love that record, and now I can go back to it and kind of appreciate it. But man, when that album came out, I was so disappointed. It was, he had such a unique death growl, and it seemed to be lost. And his vocals, his clean vocals, just seemed excessively whiny and not in a good way. And he grew into that style as it went. But as it stands, the early years of My Dying Bride are my favorite, are the favorites for me. So much power, so much color in the music, and the vocals are just so rough and tortured. It's, I don't know. It might be like As the Flower Withers. It might not be a straight up Doom record, but it's definitely within the realm.
It deserves mention. Rick, you definitely mentioned that you had the UK on your radar for Doom, so I'm guessing you want to follow up on this one.
Sure. Let's see. So, not to be confused with that other Solstice. So there is a UK one. And this right here, this is one of those ones where I'm a little iffy with the rotation of singers. I think Morris Ingram did pretty good with the, once Simon left. But I always gravitate towards this one because it's very emotive, quite a lot more emotive than some of the other material that came up. So the later albums, I had to find another new form of appreciation moving. But this one here, just out the gate, is my favorite out of all of them. This one and the EP that followed, which is I don't know how you say it. Was it Halcyon?
Oh yeah, Halcyon. Yep.
Super. Also, that cover of Gloves of Metal, the Manowar song, is kicks ass. Like not to put down Manowar, but I almost want to. I prefer this one. Just maybe it's the Doom in me. I don't know. Like just.
They do a good job on it. Absolutely.
But it's just a great song. Just overall, I know they eventually, transitioned to a new Dark Age, and but This one, it took a little. It was a little hard for me to get into. I still go back to the earlier material, and but overall, I mean, it's still a band I enjoy. I mean, just this one came in that they nailed the brown. I usually don't like brown vinyl, but I think for something like this, it's worked out pretty well. So pretty cool. So that's I don't know, Solstice. I don't know if you guys are Solstice fans.
Not a band I'm familiar with.
Oh yeah, Solstice right here. I got your back, Rick. Yeah, Solstice went through an interesting change there because you're right. This album that you're showing, Lamentations, their first, it's a good doom metal album, and it's right in that vein we're talking about with Candlemass and Solitude Eternus. Rick Walker's mentioned numerous times that Candlemass was a huge thing for them. The whole reason they started this band was he and a buddy saw Candlemass live or heard one of the first Candlemass albums, and just that's what we're going to do. That is what you and I are going to do. We're going to start a band and we're going to sound like that. They got some Man of War mixed in there too, but yeah, you can tell this album really owes a lot to the Candlemass style of doom. But by the time New Dark Age came along, they had definitely shifted their sound a bit, and yeah, that one's getting more into that epic metal territory. It's still got a very doomy aura to it. It's got a very doomy sound, but they're getting more into that sort of galloping, defiant, epic, and glorious kind of. Again, the Man of War influence is turned up. The Candlemass is turned down.
More of a wall sound, less riff driven. I noticed.
Yeah.
Material. Maybe that's why I didn't gravitate towards it as much. It's one of those that maybe it'll grow on me more and more. And this is why I keep going back to the earlier material.
Yeah, it's a good example for me where it's two albums by the same band, but I want to listen to them when I'm in very different moods. I love New Dark Age. It's an old favorite of mine, especially side A of that album is just incredible. It's lyrically, it's really complex. You could tell they were just putting every ounce, of effort they had into getting those songs nailed tight. And yeah, a lot of folks kind of forget about Lamentations. It didn't have good circulation at first. It was one of the early releases on Candlelight Records. It's Candle 007. And due to the lineup changes and the sound changes, yeah, this one never quite got as much attention. And it's not as solid as the best Candlemass or the best Solitude Eternus. If they had made this album and then just disappeared, they would have been remembered as kind of a Candlemass Solitude copycat. But they obviously went on and did a lot more cool stuff later, but in that epic vein, and they're still plugging away at it today. So,
I was gonna say this is why I appreciate like Cosmic Key and labels like that, it reissue stuff like this, because our generation can rediscover stuff like this.
All right, Alan.
Okay. Well, there's at least one big pillar of doom that we haven't mentioned yet, although Rick's been advertising it on that awesome shirt of his. We haven't mentioned The Saint, and that's a crime because this is one of the other real legacy bands when it comes to doom metal. Been around forever. They have a strange legacy of kind of going back and forth between two very good vocalists. Yeah. And Vitus, there's other things that are just kind of strange with Vitus. They were, of course, on the Black Flag SST record label, and they kind of had this camaraderie with the hardcore community. And this was at a time, back in that day when those two things didn't mix very well or very often.
Strange bedfellows.
yeah, very strange bedfellows, but they pulled it off somehow. That they had this very strange sound. And Saint Vitus, they draw a little bit more on the kind of earthy sounds of early Black Sabbath. We've been talking about, Candlemass and Solitude Eternus going for these sort of bigger, epic, grandiose sounds. There is nothing epic about Saint Vitus other than how good the music is. These guys, it's more of a dirty sound. Again, it gets a little muddy at times. It gets a little punky. This one, thank you, Aaron. This is my pick for Saint Vitus at their absolute best. This is probably one of my very favorite. If you had to name my 5 favorite heavy metal albums from the 1990s, this is probably on that list. The bands had always done quality stuff, but again, they go back and forth between Scott Riegers on vocals and then Wino. on vocals,
Yeah,
and this was the comeback for Riegers, and the vocal performance on this album is not human. The man was, I don't know, pumped full of drugs, put in a straitjacket, locked in the basement of an insane asylum with bad lighting, and forced to listen to Taylor Swift music 24 hours a day. And that's the mentality he seems to be singing from. It's just deranged. His vocal phrasing, the way he pronounces things, the way he'll drag out certain syllables, and just, it's got that theatrical side to his voice. Like you mentioned, Rick, theatrics are kind of a thing in Rieger's vocals, but not in this kind of, big, ornate style like Messiah Markland did. It's exactly the opposite. It's like, this is the voice of paranoia. And it couldn't combine better with Dave Chandler's guitar sound, which is just always this very freaky, psychedelic, but very schizophrenic, frantic sounding, screechy tones to it. It's an amazing fucking album. It defines doom metal better than almost anything else I can think of. And these guys have a ton of great albums in their catalog. The Wino material is very, very good. And I think a lot of people maybe prefer the Wino material. It may be a little better known, because Riegers was on the first two and then came back for this one, and then, of course, the most recent. I think a lot of the better known albums were the Wino albums. And he does absolutely fine. I like those albums a lot. But Riegers is the man for me.
You started with Riegers first before you discovered or listened to Scott's stuff first, or Wino stuff first.
I'm sorry, what, Rick?
You listened to Rieger's stuff first before Wino stuff, or before his vocals.
Well, actually, funnily enough, the first thing I heard by St. Vitus was the Heavier Than Thou compilation anthology, which has tracks from both.
Oh.
So, yeah, it wasn't that I heard one or the other first. They were both, there were some tracks from one end. It has a few tracks from Heavier Than Thou, but it also has tracks from the first two. So, and I liked all the tracks, but I definitely was drawn to just the really strangeness of Scott's vocals. Are his vocals and Chandler's guitar playing, the combination, you can't go wrong in nu metal when those two guys are together.
So you're probably liking the fact that he's back with the band.
Cannot complain. Can't complain at all.
That new album, again, it's like they're back.
Yeah,
I like it a lot.
Yeah, even little things on this. We were talking before about how important it is to keep the beat and stuff in these slower songs. And the drummer on here, I think it's Armando Acosta, has passed away now, but the drumming on this album is so cool. He keeps the songs moving. He's got these extra little things that really accentuate and keep your interest. The drumming on here is just it's a clinic on how to drum on a doom metal album. Amazing stuff. Die healing, absolutely.
I'm reading Pat's comments. Pretty funny.
I'll jump over to Mr. Marty and see what his next pick is.
Well, before I start getting weird, I might as well stick with the theme here. And I'm going to go with Finland's Reverend Bazaar. This is one of those bands that on paper I probably shouldn't like, but I don't know what it is about them other than they take the traditional doom, they make it a bit heavier. They take the Sabbath formula, give it more of a modern guitar distortion. The songs are painfully slow. Some people say a little too long. I mean, this Crush the Insects is a very long listen. But the thing I like about it is the vocals, they're clean, but he has a very unique style to his singing, and the Finnish sense of humor is dark and twisted. It really cuts through. I mean, songs like Fucking Wizard. There's just the lyrics are almost borderline silly, but it all for some reason works. It makes these Reverend Bazaar. It makes it a very strange. I mean, the lyrics, the vocals, it all matches what they were trying to go with the name of the band here for sure. I've got a handful of their other releases, and I like them all equally. I'm not always in the mood for it, but when I do, I'll listen to 3 Reverend Bazaar albums back to back. It's just.
You mentioned Silly, and so it's not that record, but The Harbinger of Metal.
Yeah.
Has a sort of. Here you go. Like,
yep.
What is that about?
Right. And then the other one, I can't remember the name with the goat on it. I have it on vinyl. It's got a Burzum cover of Dunkelheit on it.
In the Rectory of the Bizarre Reverend?
No, no, it's like death. What's it called? Dark metal? No, what the hell is it called? It's got metal in the title. I don't know.
Harbinger of Metal.
Harbinger of Metal. Is that the same one we're talking about? Yeah. It's got the Burzum cover on it. Yeah. It's great. It's great, heavy stuff, and if you're in the right mood for it, this shit, it's within the Doom realm for sure. It's very much a Doom album, and they were very unique. I think they played within the parameters of what traditional Doom is, but they made it their own.
I think with that band, I noticed that a lot of the newer Doom bands picked up a bit of the Finnish sound because of that band. I guess little tinges of it incorporated in there.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Reverend Bizarre is a touchy one for me because the humor is just apparent enough that it's a little bit of a turnoff for me. As we've talked about, Doom is one of those styles that relies very heavy on atmosphere. And as such, when it starts to get a little silly, it creates this kind of oxymoron that I have trouble processing. It's just like, we're trying to be heavy and doomy and ominous, but we're going to be so overblown about it. That we're just kind of kidding around. We're not serious about this. And it's just like, you're trying to create this mood, but you're intentionally kind of undercutting that mood at the same time. And it always gave me trouble with Reverend Bizarre. Now, Marty, the one you mentioned is definitely my favorite. And part of the reason is, the songs are shorter and more to the point, especially on side A. I love the side A on this because they quit fucking around. They play very, it's straightforward to the point, no bullshit.
That's what I like them best, yeah.
But when they start goofing around too much or dragging out the songs for way too long, for me, I lose interest in them. So, but I will, no doubt, they are a big part of Doom. I think they were very important in repopularizing Doom in the early and mid 2000s. That Doom metal is one of those genres. It always seems to be the black sheep in the heavy metal family, that it doesn't always get a lot of attention or respect over the years. And especially in the 90s, other than Cathedral, there was not a lot of attention paid to much Doom metal. But Reverend Bizarre definitely got Doom back in front of people and got them thinking about it. And they've been a big influence on a lot of bands since then. So I give them all the props in the world. They did it well. It was a success for them. It's not my favorite. And that's my little doom metal heresy for the night. I don't. Reverend Bizarre is never going to make my top list, but Crush the Insects.
No, they're weird, but I don't know why I gravitate. And like Human Falafel here, he says "Doom Over the World" is a silly song. It is, but it's like a party doom song. I mean, who fucking does a party doom song? I like the song because it's catchy, but it's it's a silly song.
As usual, you managed to say in 3 words what it took me 3 minutes to say. It's a party doom song, and my brain just can't quite process party doom. I wish I could.
Right. All right. Who is next? That would be Mr. Alan.
Nope, that would be Mr. Rick.
That would be Mr. Rick.
Reverend was yours, so we're back to the top of the lineup.
Reverend Dreadful.
We were talking about silly for
the Dreadful Bizarre.
So silly, and then you showed St. Vitus. So the natural transition would be
Pizza Doom. Nice one, Brian.
There you go, Brian.
Recent pickup. So this is the demo material. So when St. Vitus was putting out their stuff, this band was starting to get their ground, and they were putting out. So this is the demo. So what by silly, I mean, look at Scott's hair.
Yep, that's a look.
He tried out for the Damned, and they rejected him. So he started his own band.
A little obsessed with the punk scene, perhaps.
Before this, I never really listened to the demo material. But there's something about the way Scott plays. The moment he hit that first note, it's you know it's him. There's a very particular way that he plays, with not even just taking out the tone, just the particular way he kind of plucks and strums his guitar.
Marty goes, they go Carolina.
That actually did go. What the hell is that? The fact that they went with that photo, so the back is just a collage, like just stuff from the time period. So they didn't put out their first full length, so what, 90? Something like that. So this is going back like some 5-6 years before they were able to get their first album out. So I don't know why I hung around. I guess because he was a St. Vitus during that period too. So this was an interesting one to pull out, considering Silly and St. Vitus. Why not?
No, that's a great band to bring up right now, Rick, because there's the connection with Saint Vitus. Wino's been in a lot of other bands. He's one of those doom metal icons. At this point, old man doom metal. But Obsessed has a weird back catalog, because they were around as early as '84, maybe earlier. But it was a long time before they sort of had any official releases come out. And I remember when The Church Within came out, it was a pretty big deal. It was like, wow, Obsessed is back and finally has a thing, and it was a great album. I played it to death back in the day. But so now you've got all these anthologies and collections of a lot of that earlier material that just never quite somehow saw the light of day when they were originally around. And I don't know the timeline there well enough. Maybe someone in the comments can enlighten us. But part of it was Obsessed was part of that kind of Maryland doom scene that came up around Pentagram. But then Wino, I think, had relocated to the West Coast, and what got in the St. Vitus camp. Then that between the Obsessed and Pentagram, there's always been this sort of subgenre of doom that's like Maryland doom metal, and it tends to those bands are the blueprint, whether it's no frills, very straightforward 4/4. It's heavy, it's got that kind of dirtier sound to it a little bit, and there's a lot of bands that have come out of that area, emulating what the Obsessed and Pentagram did back in the day.
It's almost like if you didn't have the doom label to it and you just showed it to, played it in the background for somebody, they wouldn't associate with doom metal immediately. It has a particular, but even though it's a very different flavor that may not be recognizable in something, very outlandish. Like that's not, that's something that's theatrical, like Candlemass. You put it alongside something like this.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. It has a very different sound than the Candlemasses and Solitude Eternuses and such of the world. That in a way, it's a more straightforward metal sound that just is a little heavier, little more downer and such. It starts to bleed into some of the stoner rock a little bit over time too.
Definitely hear touches of that. These are the beginnings of it.
Yep, but Obsessed definitely a good one to bring up.
Okay.
Okay. I mentioned a few minutes ago that doom metal's kind of gone in fits and starts over time, but it's always hung around. And the same was true with the new wave of British heavy metal. Sometimes people mistakenly want to use that term as a genre description, but it's really more just a time and place. It's temporal and spatial in terms. Within the new wave of British heavy metal, doom was not a popular thing. If anything, bands were trying to get away from that Black Sabbath sound and move more towards the Judas Priest and Motorhead sound. But there were some exceptions, and there were exceptions that would become very important over time. And the classic example of new wave of British heavy metal playing doom are the Witchfinders. Witchfinder General sound very, very different than almost anything else that came out of that whole new wave of British heavy metal scene. They, take that Black Sabbath sound. They kind of take, a little more of the classic Paranoid and sound from the first few albums, and they take that ball and they run with it. They don't do anything fancy. They don't try to pretty it up very much. And there's, a little bit of a sense of humor going on with some of the lyrics and, the really crazy, visuals for the covers and such.
That's the one you hide for your parents.
This was one that, you did not let mom see the cover when you brought it home from the record store. It's like, what'd you find today? Nothing. I'll be in my room. What are you going to be doing? Masturbating. Leave me alone. Witchfinder General had... You just don't have many doom metal bands that came out of the new wave of British heavy metal. There's at least one other that deserves mention. We'll see if it comes up later. But they made these two really solid albums, a couple of other vinyl slabs, but that was kind of it. They, compared to a lot of new wave of British heavy metal bands, they did better having two albums out, but they didn't last all that long either. They really failed to gain traction and keep going. But later in time, it was weird. You had in the like early and mid 90s, nobody knew who this band was. And I know because I was trying to find their records at that time. And I would ask people, and they just look at me and be like, who the fuck is that? But by the time you got to the early 2000s, you had so many other bands name dropping Witchfinder General as an influence. And again, I think Reverend Bizarre helped revitalize interest in this band with Albert Witchfinder, and he's wearing a Witchfinder General T-shirt on one of the band photos on, I think it's in the Rectory, on the back cover if I remember right. And yeah, so they kind of got their due long after the fact. But I love both the albums. If I had to pick one of the two, I'll probably pick this one, but it's awfully close. Both albums are very, very solid. Straightforward, really fun, good, catchy songs with doom metal. It's a little more up-tempo, not quite, some of the songs are heavy and dark, some not as much as others, but definitely worth a shout out because it's one of the very few examples there from the early 80s of bands going with that sound very unabashedly.
Of a sophomore album.
Yeah, that's this. The Friends of Hell's the second one. Yep.
I was going to say that's a strong follow-up to Death Penalty.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a band that named themselves after that first album.
Oh, really?
Called Death Penalty. They're on
okay.
The Rise Above, so named after that. So you're saying there are people not heard of them, but it's interesting to see an influence show up somewhere.
Yep. Yeah, both albums are good. I probably pick this one over Death Penalty. Death Penalty to me always feels like it needs one more song. It's a little short in the runtime. It's good what's on there, but if it had one more track, it might be. I might put it ahead of Friends of Hell, maybe, if it was a good track.
Well, I'm going to jump on this album before Alan gets a chance to. But this album, we're going to shift back gears into the Death Doom area. And
I know what you're going to show, and you're a bastard.
There's something about this album that I absolutely adore. That is Celestial Seasons, Solar Lovers. What can you say about this? I mean, this is super heavy. The guitar tone, there's such an organic sound on this album. The guitar tone, if you were listening to it in the car and then you get moisture buildup on the inside of the windows, that's from the guitar sound. That's the atmosphere. It's a very humid atmosphere, which is strange. And that's a strange thing, but just the guitars sound wet to me. I don't know what it is. And the way, super slower, plodding, really good riffs, really emotive riffs, and probably the most proper incorporation of a violin that I've heard for this style of music. It just, the violin really centers in on these super mournful harmonies that it's something else. It's a really super depressive album, but it's catchy at the same time. They even do a cover of Ultravox's Vienna on here, which who would think, a pop song could sound so heavy and great? I mean, vocals, Death Doom vocals. This is a fantastic album, and I really don't know what much more to say about it other than this is one of, and they took the Hoover logo and put Groover. I mean, there is a definite groove to this, but it's a very sad record, and it's one of those.
I like my parodies.
What's that?
I like my parodies.
Yeah. I just, not many people talk about this band. I've got a rip, I think, of one of their other albums. I can't remember the name of it, Scarlet Passion or something like that. I can't remember.
Forever Passion.
Yeah. It's good, but it's not. This is just one of those special records that no one talks about.
I'm glad you brought that up because I know you're leaning a lot towards the Peaceville kind of bands, but that's something that was a little different, like you said, with the violins. It was like gothic and everything the other bands were doing at the time. Yep. So that was kind of was a little different.
Yeah, that's a great description of it, Marty.
If you're going to take something away from this, I mean, there's a lot of great things to check out, but definitely put this on your queue because it's a great fucking heavy, good record. Really good stuff.
I actually picked it up recently because I guess it got reissued. I don't know who reissued it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so I got it.
This came out on Metal Blade, so I don't know. Did Metal Blade reissue it? Or someone else? It did, yeah.
But no, that's a great description. It is an album that doesn't have a peer in terms of what it sounds like. Nobody else has that. It's such a warm sound. And yeah, the violin is perfect over it. It's got this very almost romantic kind
Very
of
romantic.
gothic vibe going. And it's funny because, it was an album that when it came out, my girlfriend really got into that album because, it was this romantic sound. I lent it to one of my buddies, and, he kept it for a couple nights. He's just like, I was like, hey, dude, you want to bring that back? He's just like, can I keep that for the weekend? I was like, yeah, sure. I was having to play. Like, oh, no, I'm playing it. It's like, my girlfriend likes it. She really, really likes it. So, Celestial Season, music to fuck by, doom metal for lovers.
Right.
Apparently, it really hit a nerve, possibly several.
They could have spun off and started their own Celestial Season Solar Lovers tea.
He always makes that joke with me to this day. Yeah, but the name was so weird. But it's. I've never heard another album that sounded quite like it, and it's a shame they didn't really get to follow it up.
The cover doesn't tell you very much about the material, though. Like,
And if I saw this on the rack, I would not have bought it.
It's a terrible cover. Yeah, it's a terrible
Fucking
cover.
terrible.
it could be
The
a
only reason I bought it was they had a song on, I think it was Death is Just the Beginning Volume 3. That's really good. And I don't think it's on that album. I think it was something they recorded in between Solar Lovers and Forever Scarlet Passion, but it was a pretty good song. And so I saw the album, I bought it thinking it might sound like that, and it didn't really, but it still had a really good sound to it. Yeah. It's a really, really good, it's just a good album to listen to, absolutely. You're a bastard for picking it, Marty.
I had to get it. I kept wondering when you started talking about, like, oh, here it comes. He's going to talk about it. I had to get in there.
All right. So while we're on Death Doom, so this is a band that I actually thought was European. This is back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I had MP3s of this for a good long time. I did no research. So I'm like, okay, this is European Death Doom band. I like them very much. They have a lot of way to incorporate beauty and atmosphere, but still keep things very dark. And that band, try to keep it alphabetical so I can. I'm still struggling.
Oh, you bastard! What are the chances?
Ah, you suck.
You suck.
You suck more than Marty.
I thought no one's going to pick this one. I'm safe.
I went with this one.
Should have went with Culinary. They don't have a large discography, which is the other thing too. I know that Rhett Davis is also in that new band. I don't know if you're familiar with Stygian Crown. So I don't know if we brought up any like female-fronted doom at all at this point, but this is a really good one to check out if you haven't yet. So again, with Morgan's drummer on board, you can probably see him right there. So pretty cool. But I mean, I don't know what much more I can say, but this is one of the ones that I really enjoyed, especially back in the. So I'm glad to have a physical copy of it.
Heavy as hell. I mean, there's no denying how heavy that shit is, and it's so well written and so gripping.
This is what got me to really pay attention to the composition of this kind of stuff. I mean, back and I was like just coming out of my teens, and I just wanted everything to be just dark and dirty and just down-tuned and this kind of made me pay attention to the way things were more put together, and them and My Dying Bride, I think at the time were like the top two.
Yeah, that's a great pick, Rick. And what you said there, you really do you have to pay attention to the way those songs are composed because they're so well crafted. They create atmosphere like nobody's business. I got to see them live one time. They were at the Milwaukee Fest in '99, and they were on one of the crappy little relapse stages. They got like 20 stinking minutes. And they turned the lights up really bright, but they cranked the fog machine up to 11. And so it was weird because you had, you couldn't see it bloody. You could barely see them on the stage. It was really just like ghostly outlines of them. But it wasn't dark. It was very bright in the room at the same time. And it was just the perfect atmosphere for that music. I just stood there. I didn't move for the whole 20 minutes. I just stood there in trance. It was one of the coolest atmospheres I ever saw a band create in a live setting. And they did it playing these long, slow songs, which 20 minutes for them, they might have gotten 3 songs done. and they just nailed it. It was amazing. I immediately went out to the main floor and looked for. It was like, who's got one of their albums for sale? I'm taking that shit home with me.
That's what I mean.
Incredible.
Like, probably play because this is just between this and Solari. Again, it's not a big discography, so they could probably cover a good set. But with those long tracks, they can probably fill 2 hours.
Yeah. This was right when Solinari had they were on for Solinari. I don't know if it had come out or was about to be released. I think it was already out at the time. But all three of their albums have a little different sound. The first one is leans a little more towards death doom. Solinari, is very heavy on the atmospherics. The third album is kind of a quieter album. I like a lot of it, but it's a little more introspective, but not in the same ways that Solinari kind of goes almost astrophysical at times. And the third one, the name's escaping me at the moment. It's good, but it's got this more somber, kind of quiet vibe to it. I like it, but I don't play it as much as the other two. Homework, yes. Okay, no one's mentioned this yet, and it should have been mentioned by now. Winter is coming.
Bastard.
We did it again.
Had to happen. Into Darkness, what a cool record. What a cool sound. Again, this is a good example where doom metal was not popular when this came out. Nobody was paying attention to much doomy stuff around this time, and this was a strange release, for Relapse, and they couldn't give this album away. I got those.
The analogy you made on your video about it being a coaster.
This thing, I probably still have one or two of those Relapse catalogs, and every time they'd send you one, it was one of the first things on their, $5 CDs. Please buy a copy of Winter, somebody. And I had picked it up. The local store actually got the Eternal Frost EP in, and I bought it, there at the local store. This is another band that no one has ever really quite captured the same vibe that they managed to on this album. It's heavy, it's dark, it's eerie, it's a little out there. Really, really cool sound to it by far. If anybody missed it last year, because what could possibly have caused you to miss anything last year, the guitar player is in a new project called Godin, which of course is named after one of the tracks on this, and it's very much a spiritual successor to Winter. If you like Winter, Godin is worth checking out. It's not as good. They have a lot of little interlude tracks in the album in between the real songs that they probably didn't need. But if you're looking for something that sounds like Winter, at least give Godin a listen. If nothing else, good pays homage to it.
They're a New York band.
Mm-hmm. Yep. New York.
I say that because at the time that came out, everybody was trying to be faster. Everybody was harder and faster. And this thing drops. You're like, what do we do with this?
Jurgen here says, has a Hellhammer. To me, that album is Hellhammer meets Amoebics. That is like the first crust doom album to me. That's what I hear. That's what I hear. I hear it sounds like crusty punks playing doom. They got Hellhammer, they got Amoebics in there, and there's a little bit of Axe Grinder in there too. Rise of the Serpent.
I like called Grief. That remind me a lot like that too. They just have that really slow, down-tuned, really depressing.
Yep.
Take like a Hellhammer record, or like play Procreation of the Wicked. If it's on a 45, play it at 33 RPMs, and you're getting towards a Winter sound. That's a good point, Jurgen.
Yep. And that's me. I'm next. Okay.
It's all you.
Well, before I get weird here, I'm going to finish out this round. We'll stay with the uniqueness of Finland with Skepticism, Storm Crow Fleet.
Nice.
This is a very unique album. They have very slow, plotting death doom with funeral organ, straight up funeral organ on all this stuff. It sounds like you're in a funeral, but it was a metalhead funeral.
I remember when I first listened to that in the late '90s. I put that on. I can hear my heartbeat. That's how slow it was going.
Yeah. And their claim to fame is the funeral organ and the drum. There wasn't a traditional drum kit. It was kettle drums on this early stuff. I don't know how true that is. It's kind of like the whole what the hell was the name of that band that said they had a diesel harp in the band? Oh shit, I can't remember their name right off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, this album, it isn't one I grab for a feel good time all the time. But man, when this thing came out, I listened to it a lot. Definitely piling on the depression with that funeral, weeping funeral sound to it.
Yep. Another
band that continued on for a lot of years. They put out a newish album within the last 5 or 10 years. I never did get it. That's the only one I don't own by these guys. But these guys are great. As they went, they got a little more normal, I think. But this is a great kind of experimental doom album for me. Always really appreciated it, what they were doing with that.
Yeah. That's a cool pick, Marty. Yeah, I usually gravitate towards Lead and Ether in their catalog.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot. But Stormcrow release is also very cool.
I appreciate it now. I didn't at the time. I just, as much as I was getting to Doom, it was a very different brand of Doom, even different than the other funeral stuff that I was listening to, like Esoteric and other bands like that. There's just something about it. Although I like Ordeals, and the newer material now, I don't know who's next.
Good one, Slavic. Who's next? Sorry.
Mr. Rick.
I was looking at the comments.
There's a lot of good comments to look at right now. Yep. Folks are lighting it up in the chat.
So to piggyback off that, for as far as a different brand of Doom, so here's another one that's quite different. It's not funeral Doom. Band from New Orleans. If you guys know Thou. So it's probably, I don't know, like the releases vary between sludge. Coming from New Orleans, you probably would expect that, but they're another brand of that sort of that death, very harsh with the vocals. But I find that they're pretty creative what they do. They actually put out a really good collaboration album last year with Emma Ruth Rundle. I don't know if you're aware, but it's pretty amazing. So that's Foul. I think this one came out in 2018. But they've been around since I want to say they're not that old. They've been around since 2007, 2008, something like that. I think it's when they formed. But it's very sludgy, harsh, doom. But they lean on quite a bit of experimentation too with their stuff. Like it's like between release and release. But this one here is probably one of my favorite ones that they put out. This one and their second one, I think it's called Tyrant. So,
okay. Yeah, I don't know that band. I'll have to check that out. It sounds interesting.
They're not. I don't see them mentioned too much or talked about much. This is why I put it in here. I'm sure like somebody will probably look at this and go, I really know this band. But then you're gonna have those people that are gonna go, I've never heard of them. It doesn't surprise me.
I saw them play their Heathen album in its entirety at Gilead Fest, the first Gilead Fest, and they didn't strike me as Doom, but I know they're very they vary between albums for sure.
A lot, yeah. This was the more that's doomy kind of sound. There's one that I could, as far as the recent stuff that I could think of, and this is why I'm showing it. But it's also just weird. They don't use the regular kind of aesthetics you would expect from this kind of stuff.
Okay, Alan.
All right. Since Marty Funeral Doom, I'll stick there for a minute. Funeral Doom, I like the concept, but the execution sometimes leaves me a bit wanting.
You gotta want to listen to it.
You gotta want to listen to it, and you gotta have the time to really sit down and pay attention to it to really get it. But there's some bands can hit that better than others. For me, my go-to if I'm in the mood for Funeral Doom is Evoken, and one of their best is one of their more recent ones, Atramons. Evoken's done a lot of albums, and they tend to be very consistently good in this style. Even though the songs are very much in the funeral structure, very slow, kind of long. They do a better job than most bands, I feel, of keeping the songs moving along and holding your interest and just kind of putting them together well. Some of their albums lean a little heavier, some of their albums, incorporate a little bit of a different sound. This one to me was just they kind of stripped away a lot of those elements. Like, we're not going to be too heavy. We're not going to work in anything unusual or tinker with different sounds. We're just going to make a really solid funeral album. And they nailed it, hit it right on the head.
That's why it's so hard to describe them, because they're little no frills as far as there's no violins and other things going on. So
there's no
little different.
Yeah, there's no kettle drums or organs. There's no gimmick to it most of the time. But I've always thought that they did. They take their time. They don't rush albums out. You usually have to wait a few years in between them, but this one in particular.
Also considering where they're from, like here on the East Coast, it's like there's no particular flavor you can automatically think of to attach what their sound should be like.
Mm-hmm. They've got their own thing in that part of the world. Yep.
They named themselves after this. This is the Thurgothan demo. So
that's right. I forgot that.
Vulcan, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yep, I figured somebody's going to show that Thurgothan album tonight.
I opted not to. I don't know why. It's Funeral Doom is down the list for me. I mean, I like it, and I like Thurgothan and other bands in that style, but man, it's a very seldom that I grab for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. All right, Mr. Marty, what have you got for us?
All right, since Slavic CC mentioned them earlier, Disembowelment, Transcendence into the Peripheral. This is a favorite for sure. They put out this album and a Dusk EP, and that was about it. But this is a band, very heavy Doom influence, but there's also some blast beats on this. I mean, it isn't straight up Doom all the time, but the thing that's really cool is they put a very strange, esoteric experimentation twist in this music. Whether it's world music styled atmospherics in the background, or I don't know, it's just a weird combination between such heavy death doom and by putting other more airy influences from other musics. Your Prophetic Throne of Ivory, what a great song, man! It's just these guys were twisted and weird. No one really sounded like them, and there hasn't been a whole lot of bands dipping into their sound, although there's a band that has some members of Blood Incantation called Spectral Voice, I want to say. There's some definite disembowelment influence, some nod of appreciation on that stuff, but another band, a lot of people don't talk about these guys, and they put out some really cool, interesting, creative,
they have very unassuming covers too, so if you don't know who they are,
another one, you wouldn't, that wouldn't jump off the shelf. Unless for the era it was on Relapse, I would have bought it. Because Relapse early on, they were on fire, man. They put out some amazing shit.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good one. I haven't revisited that in far too long. It was when I picked up randomly in a tape trade. Someone threw it in and just it was like, wow, this is. I wasn't expecting much because I knew nothing about it, but I was just like, that's actually really cool. I need to follow up on them. So awesome pick for sure.
Rick.
Okay, so I know Lee Dorian's not very popular with some people, but after what was the '93 album, the Ethereal Mirror, which kind of a downhill period for the band, but I like the Carnival Bazaar. In 1995, I think was the year, at least for me, where he kind of redeemed himself. But not because of that album, but because of this.
I like Soul Sacrifice. That's decent.
Paul Chain. So this came out in, I want to say 1995. Alcahest. So this was so the Violent Theater and all that stuff was already nothing he was doing. So here he got Lee Dorian to do the vocals, and I don't know, if I was going to introduce somebody to Doom and they were more apt to go for the really riffier kind of stuff, this is pretty damn catchy. So, it's actually one of my favorite Doom albums of all time. It was put up by Minotauro.
Yep.
Fans being Italian and all. But I don't know how you guys feel about Paul Chain just in general.
Never heard it.
The fact that it's really good. I would definitely check. You might even not think that is Lee Dorian. Like it just he does a different kind of performance in this. It's just like I don't know what it is. Maybe something about the concept and working with Paul Chain. But this is a really good one, and I'm glad it got repressed. This was really hard to find for a good while.
Oh yeah. Yeah, those older Minotauro records are a pain to find sometimes. Now, that's a cool pick. I have not heard a whole lot of Paul Chain's discography. I've heard bits and pieces here and there. It's never bad, but it never grabs me enough where I want to sit down and work my way through the catalog like I ought to. So I will start with that one.
I will definitely start with this one. The Violet Theater stuff, a lot of it's kind of experimental. It's just strange. Not all of it sounds very Doom. Some of it sounds like thrash almost. Like there's I don't know what else. They're Italian. They're just weird in general.
Yeah, there was a period there too. I mean, I don't know if he did it on all his albums or just for certain periods, but he was trying to sing in this weird like phonetic language that he claimed he invented that
too.
Also kind of added to the weirdness of it.
As much as possible.
But usually I think of Paul Chain in association with Death SS, but he obviously had a long, prolific career that went way beyond what they did. Oh, neat.
Yeah, again, it was
very cool.
Fine.
Yeah, I will check that one out because I have not heard that one, and I will need to check that one out.
You might change your opinion on Dorian after listening to this. There's
that happening. Oh, hey, what you got to say? Fat Albert doing doom metal, not into it.
Yeah. Before I go to my next one, just follow up on Dorian. Cathedral is worth mentioning there at least because it was one of the few things that pops to mind where that it was a more visible Doom release in the early 90s because that Forest came out in what, 91, 92 maybe, right in there. And it was actually on a big label and had a pretty big push with it. But it sounded like nothing else coming out at the time. And it was the Doom metal had a rough patch there, not much exposure. But anyway, not going to show Cathedral. I'll stay in Italy. Italian Doom, as Rick said, has a long storied history, very weird history. I've done a video on it. You can go watch it if you want to. I make a horrible mistake and put a Finnish band in the video by accident, so there's a blooper reel in there somewhere. But the Doom album out of Italy for me, my just personal favorite is this one. It's a band called Requiem, and it's a live album, oddly enough. It's a Minotauro release from, I believe it came out in 92.
It looks like a hardcore album cover.
It's you can tell where they're playing in some little place, and there must be all of like 12 people sitting in the audience. You can tell there's just nobody there, but
it looks like one of the Violet Theater albums. Like it just has that aesthetic. You would think, okay.
And they very much played off that aesthetic on some of their albums. They did an EP, and the Ex Voto EP has like this kind of classical oil painting motif on it, like you'd associate with Italian art or something. It could have shown up on a Candlemass album very easily. And they had some lineup changes when they did their full-length album Via Crucis, which is really good. I could have shown that. The lineup changes helped a lot. They got a better vocalist, in my opinion. The songwriting got tighter. And then this was the only other thing they ever put out. It probably was like a contractual obligation or something, but yes, it is a really awesome sound. The fact that they're playing in this live environment and it's a small crowd, and you can tell, they can do whatever the fuck they want to, and it's just got this, it's drenched in this really graveyard atmosphere. It's misty by moonlight, and all the Italian strangeness just drips from everything they do on this. This was one of the first Italian Doom albums I ever got. I blind bought it out of a vinyl mail order catalog back around 92 because the description the guy had written was just amazing. He was just ranting and raving about this band and this album. And I was just like, I'm never going to find that out in the wild around here, so I want to send this guy $20 and take my chances. And I played this album and played this album and played this album. If you just want, a great solid doom metal album, but then also really shows you that quintessential Italian weirdness to the style, I would recommend this as a starting point. There are definitely more famous and better known ones to go with, something like Death SS or Paul Chain, but this is the one. This for me just has the atmosphere perfect. Love it to death.
The way you describe it sounds like I would like it. I've not checked that one out.
We will help you fix that if we can.
All right, I'm next. Okay.
You're next.
Because Eric was calling for it. Paramecium, exhumed of the earth. Back in the day, there was a Christian metal thing going on, which is fine. It's great. There's some really great bands in this scene, and there was, if you went into a Christian bookstore and looked at the music section, these albums would have stickers on them. If you like Slayer, maybe you should give Living Sacrifice a try, type of thing. Well, this would basically be, if you like My Dying Bride, you should try Paramecium, because
little hype stickers sometimes get me.
this is Jason Sherlock, who was initially known for being the drummer in the other Australian band Mortification. He also went on to do some death metal stuff. He also went on to do a pretty traditional, very cool black metal album called A Horde was the name of the band. And the name of the album was Hellig Usvard, which was Norwegian for Holy Unblack. But he's a very talented dude, and this is a very excellent album. Very much in the early My Dying Bride wheelhouse. Thick, well-written death doom with violin. The violin is the key, kind of like Celestial Season and My Dying Bride. That the violin just is perfect for selling those really mournful harmonies. And that's on this. And this is a really, really good release. And I know he's done some albums under this moniker after this or before this. I don't know. This is the only one I own. This is the only one I've heard. I heard the other albums aren't as good as this one, so I never really pursued it much. But if you're into My Dying Bride, give Paramecium a shot. This is really good Christian doom.
That's one where I've seen the name around, but I've never actually checked them out.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I've never seen or heard of that band, so that's on the to listen list now. Interesting.
Good shit. Yep. And Rick.
All right. So Pat showed this album, which is in the video he posted today. So there's a band, Penance, and what's interesting about this is that I got this copy a few blocks down from where I live. There was a guy having one of those little outside little yard sales, and some really old dude. And he had like ceramics and all kinds of other things. And then he had a little corner with the CDs. It was just like he actually had an MC Hammer CD in there and some other things.
And of course, you bought the MC Hammer CD too.
No comment.
Can't touch that, Rick. Can't touch that.
You can't touch that.
But what is this really bad Photoshop work? And I'm looking at it. I'm like, yeah. But it's sitting there. So I'm like, hey, how much? They're all in terrible shape. The case is all cracked and all that stuff. And this one seems like it was in decent shape. It's bad Photoshop work, but at least the case was decent and the tip wasn't scratched. So
bad Photoshop work is a plague of the 90s and early 2000s.
It was in pretty decent shape. It's like, all right, so $1. We got the nice little OG copy of Pennant. So they're out of I want to say Pittsburgh. So this came out in 93, 94, something like that, which is pretty good. So then I was looking into this and I realized there was a band that was before this that they were all part of, and that is right here, Dream Death.
Oh shit!
So these guys went on, yeah. So they wanted to form this. So they went from this sort of thrash hook kind of bass laden kind of doom to, and they were trying their hand on this epic sort of doom sort of direction, which I thought was really, really interesting. But I really like this. The band, this Dream Death is still around, putting out stuff. But I just thought that was really interesting how they decided to take this sort of shift. So thought I'd mention that because I know Pat showed it. I figured I might as well just piggyback off that.
Right on. Okay, Alan, you're up.
Okay. Let's do this one next. This one, I don't hear people mention it very often, but when I do, they rave about it, and deservedly so. Russian epic doom metal with Scald. The will of gods is great power. Several things about that sentence don't make a lot of sense. We don't really think, Russia for doom metal necessarily, but there was a band named Scald, and they made this one album and there's a few other recordings. I think they have a split or a demo, a single. I don't know all the details on their catalog. But they made this one album around 1996, and it is very much, again, influenced in that kind of Candlemass meets Manowar meets Solitude Eternus style of epic doom metal goodness, and they are really good at it. It's a very, very good album. If the band had been from the UK, everybody would know this. If they had been from the US or Sweden, everybody would know this and rant and rave about it.
That's a good point. Like we were showing a lot of the similar regions. Something from, I don't think I have anything from Russia.
Yeah, they were from Russia, and the kind of main guy in the band was killed in an accident a couple of months before the album was getting released. They had finished recording it, but it wasn't actually out yet. So he ended up dying before the album even came out, and the band, immediately decides like we can't really do this without him. So that was kind of the end of it there for for Scald at that time. The stuff is hard to find most of the time. This particular version was reissued by Hammerheart in 2019, I think. And even this is kind of a pain to find in the United States. Weirdly enough, this was one of those things that checked on Discogs. People had it if I wanted, to import it from the Netherlands and pay, 240 million, kronknokkers for shipping. I checked. It's a lot. I wasn't paying that for shipping. Checked the metal detector. Nobody in the U.S. had the bloody thing. And then I found it on Amazon, of all bloody places.
I hate that.
Not an independent seller, just Amazon, available for free shipping with your Amazon order of Beanie Babies and giant hunting knives. I'm just like, fuck me. They've got a Scald CD. It's a 2 CD set with some live material and some demos from the band the guy had before recruiting new members and changing over in this more epic direction with and changing the name to Scald. I'm just like, I've got Amazon points signed up from buying Pokemon paraphernalia. Let's put that in the cart quickly. They had 2 copies left. I'm just like, oh, please, now. Buy it now.
You want to wait 20 years for another purchase.
Yeah, weird way to find it. But if you like that, again, if you like your doom metal to lean in that really epic, sort of over-the-top style of those bands I mentioned, check this out. You can hear parts of it on YouTube, of course. Go check it out. It's definitely worth your time. I think you'll like it. Scald. Will of Gods is great power.
Never heard.
Don't feel bad. The only reason I know of it, a buddy on the West Coast sent me MP3s of one of their other recordings years ago, and he's just like, Alan, I know what you like, and you need to hear this, and you need to hear it now, because goddamn, it's good. And I know this guy. If he sends me something with doom metal related, I'm going to stop what I'm doing, and I'm going to play it right away. And yeah, he was absolutely right.
Awesome. Next up, I don't know if this is doom or not, because Run to the Light has a lot of energy on it in spots. But of the first 3 Trouble albums, this one is my favorite. It's probably because it's the first one I heard in full. I mean, obviously I heard other Trouble songs from, old Metal Blade or Combat, I don't know, old comps. But out of all these albums, which are all great, Run to the Light always resonated the most with me. I don't know if I found some sort of connection to some of the lyrics when I was younger, but I listened to the crap out of this record. And I bought it for $2.99 used. How's that for a deal? Also, this one for $2.99, got home, opened it up, and it was a white vinyl, which is rare of the early pressings. But anyway, these guys, they ran with the doom flavor, although they mixed it up by putting some speed in, not like blasting speed, but more of an energetic pace. Eric Wagner's vocals are completely unique. This band sounded like no one. Bruce Franklin's guitar playing, he had a very distinct guitar sound, very Sabbathy playing style, very much a Iommi prodigy. But he just had a unique sound to him, and I always really liked this stuff. I even liked the self-titled one, although it got a little stonery at times.
Okay, that sounded least Doom to me. It was more of a hard rock. Blues
Yeah.
rock.
But I always associated this with Doom for some reason. I don't know what it is, but
Oh yeah, I do too.
It does, especially the first, like the ones you're holding right there. Did for me anyway.
which one? Run to the Light?
That one and the Skull. Well, all three really.
Yeah. They had their own thing going on, but they function within the Doom sphere, but it's
They
not
went a direction, because I know like Eric Wagner kind of left for a while, and I think he's going to be back with the band. They got Kyle Thomas to do the singing on the last thing they put out. He went from Exorder to that, which is.
I haven't heard a Trouble album in ages. I don't have no. I know they had the guy from Warrior Soul for a while.
Yep.
And that just did not speak to me. Is worth something I wanted to listen to. So I haven't heard it. They might be putting out great shit. I don't know, but I have no clue.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything recent from them in ages. Yeah, Trouble is definitely one of those that is Doom related, but I can see Rick's point too. That it was a band that some people could listen to it, and it just sounds like a slightly kind of bottom heavy metal blade band from back then. But others, it's like no, it's actually it leans in that Doom camp. And Chicago had a style to a lot of those bands around that era. Where a lot of bands from the Chicago area sounded a little bit like Trouble, where they had this doomy undertone to them. There was an excellent one around the same time period called Enforcer. Not the Enforcer that's known from the more recent years over in Sweden, but Enforcer out of Chicago had a really great sound and very reminiscent of Trouble. There's a band called Witch Slayer, not Witch Killer. That was a whole different group of witches that were getting taken out. But yeah, Witch Slayer had that same kind of sound, and they were a Chicago area band. So I don't know if it was something in the water or if the bands were just kind of influencing one another. Warcry is another one out of Chicago that had that sound. And of course, one of the guys from Warcry went on to bigger and better things later on. But the original Trilogy of Terror demo with Warcry has these same doomy undertones, but it's very powered out sounding. So yeah, it's really straddling the line between do you call it doom or not?
With those bands from that sort of northern Midwest area, going from the Indiana, even that Dream Death I showed was they're from Pittsburgh. It's just there's these doom undertones, but it's still kind of thrash album.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny though, because you move east, a couple hundred miles to Cleveland, and you don't have that in the sound of the Cleveland scene bands at the same time. They didn't really have that same kind of doomy vibe. There it's the very clean sound, more like Black Death, Breaker, Shock Paris, all those bands on Auburn Records and stuff. So yeah, there's definitely little regional sounds even there within the Midwest at the time. But yeah, I really like a lot of those Chicago area a lot of demos. I think there was a band called Battalion that did a demo in Chicago around that same 84, 85, 86 time frame. They may have actually had one of the guys from Warcry in Battalion. And it's got that same very sort of, bottom heavy sound. And it's just kind of funny. Personally, I like all those bands more than Trouble. I can't explain why. Trouble's not bad, but I kind of like their trippy, psychedelic-y stuff later on. I had this on hand because I knew if we didn't mention the band, we'd be in trouble with our audience.
Oh!
Time for the dad joke.
Let's see what you did there.
Nailed it.
Rick.
All right. Something a little different. So this one right here, just to hit a theme. I know that a lot of Doom has all these different elements, but this one's actually a band that's pretty recent. So this is their first debut, and they're from I think they're from the Netherlands. This is Altar of Oblivion.
Nice.
So this is a World War II concept album, and it's pretty cool. Like they, you were mentioning bottom heavy a lot, and I hear it a lot in this album. But the thing is that the guitar tone is so thin. And the way he plays is not very typical. What you hear a lot of doom metal. It's a lot of very sort of very I don't know how you, it's very scratchy with the way the guitar work is and with the palm muting and all that. But the bass is so punchy, it kind of balances that out, with the sort of thin tone with the very heavy bass. It gives it a very unique voice. The vocals is very it's very operatic instead of like just theatrical. It's more operatic might be a better word, and it almost feels like there's two singers. It does some very interesting things with the vocal work. There's I think my favorite track here is probably My Pinnacle of Power. Really good track. If you ever get a chance to check them out. So I think they got like 2 more full lengths that came out to this one. But this one here is very strong debut. By this band.
Check it out.
That's a great pick, Rick. Yeah, I like that band. Their demo was good. That's my favorite of the albums I've heard by them. I think I missed an album somewhere along the way, but yeah, very cool sound. And yeah, the vocals are a little strange. They take, they can throw you off just a little bit at first because yeah, he's kind of doing this operatic thing, but he's got kind of this low bravado to his voice. It was a little weird sounding at times. It works. He does it pretty good, but
if you're not expecting it, it kind of takes you aback as well.
Yeah, the first time you listen to it, you're gonna be like, "What's going on with that?" But yeah, it's a cool band, and yeah, they still seem to be going pretty strong. They switched record labels a couple albums back, but they seem to still be doing well.
This one's Shadow Kingdom.
Shadow Kingdom, yeah. Their first few are on Shadow Kingdom, and then I forget what they changed to. But yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Just like the World War II theme, just something different, pretty cool.
Yeah, and hey, that's war is pretty doomy.
Yep, for sure. All right.
Okay. Well, next one up. I mentioned a few minutes ago, had a buddy Rob over on the West Coast that knows how to hook me up with really good Doom stuff. He mentioned this about the same time Eric Bauer, who's hanging out with us tonight, had also talked about this band. I forget if it was on one of the streams last year or in one of his own videos, but he's like, this is a pretty gnarly sounding band folks should check out. And it was literally like, a day or two later, Rob had also mentioned, she's like, hey, have you heard these guys? You got to check this out. I'm just like, okay, both these guys have mentioned it within 48 hours of one another. Let's give it a listen. And before I knew it, I was sending $30 to Taiwan and waiting 3 months to get my hands on Purification. It's a band out of the Portland scene, who's, of course, been pretty prolific with all kinds of heavy metal projects lately. At this stage, Purification was kind of famous for just like having no guitar or not a regular guitarist in the band. They were doing it with percussion and bass and crazy vocals. They owe a lot to Reverend Bizarre. They're kind of trying to do the same very blatantly, overly satanic, crazy image to the point that it's all just kind of a nudge nudge, wink wink kind of thing. But it works pretty well, and I liked this one a lot. Yeah, it came out on a small label from over there. It has a crazy name. I'm forgetting what it is. Nazi Suicide or something like that. What do we got here? Terror Ritual. I'm still not reading it right. Anyway, but they've actually cranked out a lot of stuff. They've put out 3 albums in the space of 2 years, and the second one they did recruit a 3rd member to kind of round out the sound. What they were doing was interesting. I think it was smart of them to go ahead and add, a full-time guitarist to. I think it would have been hard to keep, with that simple structure and do quality stuff over and over again. But yeah, the second album is really, really strong. It's got some great stuff on it. And yeah, they're really reveling in all the Doom tropes and having fun with it. They've got slogans like you can't fuck with the forces of Doom and throw away the cross and this kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm really digging their stuff and keeping a close eye on them. I'm hoping they.
That is something if I saw a record store and without listening to it, the curiosity would get the best of me.
All right. Let's get weird. My last 2 bands, some people are going to say, that's not Doom. But this, to me, feels like a Doom record, and we're going back to Finland here with Unholy's Second Ring of Power.
Oh yeah.
Ah.
This album, if you haven't heard it, check this album out. It is so weird. It's not that weird. It's like Doom with a black metal feel, but the songs are so heavy, so obtuse. The vocals are great.
It's even psychedelic at times. I noticed, like,
What's that?
it's psychedelic at times.
The last song, Serious Personality Disturbance and Deep Anxiety, is like a weird psychedelic thing. But this album and this whole band is great. I enjoy their entire discography. This is their first, From the Shadows. A little more primitive here. This to me is their perfect album. It is just so well sculpted, heavy, twisted. It's depressing, but avant-garde enough to not really take you down that far. It's just really interesting to listen to. And as they went with Rapture and Grace Fallen, these albums they took on more of a goth feel, not in a necessarily bad way. A little more synth entered into the equation. They had some woman joined the band. Her vocals were quite mystical sounding, but it was with the gruff vocals, so it wasn't just all the changeover. There's a lot of mood and atmosphere on these records, quite good. But for me, the Second Ring of Power is a overlooked Finnish classic. To be completely honest, it's
I was
just.
gonna say, why do you think it got overlooked? It's because of just the weirdness, or just it wasn't the right?
No, this came out. I think it initially came out on Avant-Garde. Yeah, it was initially came out in '94 on Avant-Garde, and this is a Nuclear Blast reissue. But
Okay.
I don't know if it's just the label, the time they came out. I think it came out in '94. So what was happening in '94? Obviously, Norwegian black metal was exploding.
Yeah. Not doom metal.
Yeah, and like bands like Impaled Nazarene, although they definitely carved out a name for themselves, they weren't maybe as big as what was going on in Norway. But this, they took more of a doom stance. They mixed black metal with it, but there's a lot of the songs are slow and plodding. This is a great album. You should check it out for sure. But I don't know if it's straight up doom per se, but it feels like one to me.
I like that one. It really challenges that notion. Like, where do you fit that? I think that band was in that. Like,
Right.
I don't know that at all, so that's on my list of things. So.
Yeah, give it a check. It's
will.
weird. It's really good stuff.
It sounds interesting. Yeah, stuff. There's so much doom metal there in the mid '90s that none of it got any attention. Like the avant-garde stuff was hard to find in the U.S. sometimes. There's like all the bands that were on Hellhound, like Count Raven and Warhorse, and nobody would buy that stuff back then. Nobody would touch that stuff, which was not all of it was great, but there was some quality stuff that got overlooked.
Well, that Count Raven, I have Mammon's War.
Yeah,
And the guy sounds just like Ozzy.
he's dead on. Oh, it's dead on Ozzy. Yeah, Christian Lindstrom. He was the vocalist on Saint Vitus's Children of Doom album, the Dokken album.
Okay.
So he did that. But Count Raven's albums, if you want a really good sort of Sabbath Ozzy clone, they're great for that.
Rick.
Interesting you showed that one. So I wasn't going to show this one next, but might as well piggyback off that. So this is a band out of Italy. So it's, female fronted. So this band is Messa. So this came out in 2016. Album's called Belfry. Got a cool little silk screen in the back there. And it doesn't sound like your what you call typical Italian doom. It's got a lot of the sort of it's very, very power chord driven, very heavy. But it's in a way, it's done in such a way where it's got some hooks, and the way the song is structured is kind of I want to say it's very conventional. So you got the verse, chorus kind of thing happening, but with the doom element still in it. The reason I brought this one up is because you were showing that Unholy. It's what they followed up with. They followed up with Feast for Water, and which is nothing like this. They got they released this album, and right from there in 2018, they went more avant-garde and sort of artsy and jazzy, but still with that doom underpinnings. It's not quite as obvious as this one. But I like this album quite a lot, and it's not a band I hear brought up a lot.
Never heard of them. Yep.
Yeah, that's not something I would expect people to know what it is. But if you like something a little more easier to digest, this is a very easy band to digest, especially this release right here. So Belfry from Italy, you wouldn't know they're from Italy.
Cool.
Interesting. Yeah, I do not know that one at all.
All right.
Belfry. Yeah, sorry, doing my homework. All right, are we down to our last one or so?
Yep.
I got so many here to pick, but there's one that's got to be mentioned because it is possibly the saddest sounding album, emotionally speaking, I have ever heard in my life. It's the second album by Warning, Watching from a Distance.
That's a good one.
And goddamn, this is emotionally draining to listen to. Not because it's heavy or crushing. It is just heartbreakingly sad. The vocals are by Patrick Walker, who's the brother of Rick Walker from Solstice. And his vocals on here, every song, it is just like an ode to the time that it's that day in your life where your girlfriend broke up with you right after your dog got hit by the school bus, and you found out that your parents were divorcing because your mom wasn't your real mom, and the house had burned down while they were arguing, and you forgot your homework. It is just, I mean, I'm making it sound silly, but
it really sounds like he's about to break down. Like, just
he really does. This is the voice of somebody who has no hope. This is somebody who has lost everything, and they're not angry about it. They're not ranting about it. They have accepted loss in its purest form. They are, if anybody's familiar with the old Neil Gaiman Sandman graphic novel comic series, this is sung by somebody who is a prisoner in the realm of despair and will never ever leave her realm.
That's a pretty good analogy.
It's a beautiful album. It is well played. It is well done. I bet I haven't played this album in the better part of 10 years. I just can't listen to it most of the time. If I'm happy, this just drains you. And if you're not happy and you listen to this, you better have like suicide prevention hotline on speed dial or something. I mean, it is just emotionally hard to listen to this album. It's so well done. Patrick went on. This was the last thing I think they did.
You don't have to have a ear for Doom. You could just put it on for anybody. You can hear very clearly.
Yeah. It's sung very clean. It's sung very clear. It's not. There's nothing. It's not wrapped in gauzy layers of atmosphere or anything. It's a guy sitting by himself, and his whole world has crumbled to dust and blown off into the ocean. And he's just sitting there watching the last few little microscopic shards of silt disappear on the horizon. And that's it. He went on after this, he kind of got a different band together, 40 Watt Sun, who I think are better known. And he kind of goes for the same thing, but it doesn't sound the same to me in 40 Watt Sun. The debut album has a much kind of more jagged, raw sound to the instrumentation that is a little at odds with his voice. The 40 Watt Sun stuff hasn't really grabbed me. The second album was better than the first, but
like the way with the Warning material.
Yeah. But yeah, if you just want sorrow incarnate, you play this. Can't do doom metal without mentioning it. Just don't make me play it tonight, because I don't want to go to bed with that on my mind.
Right on.
On a rainy day.
Well, I'm gonna stay weird with it, and this is gonna be another one where people are like, "This isn't really doom," but this to me feels like a doom record because of the way it makes me feel, which, like Alan, described with the Warning, how it can really bring you down. This album always got to me. Bethlehem Suicide. from Germany. This
They
is
call it dark metal, I think. It's
yeah. They call this dark metal, but man, it gives me the same feeling that Doom does. And this album is so damn good and so creative and depressing. I mean, I think a lot of DSBM wishes they could be Bethlehem during this in the earlier albums, but for me, is this a Doom record? Probably not. Like I said, I'm bending the rules, but it drags me down like a proper Doom metal album.
I think that what you're mentioning there, Eric Bauer did a really good video on feel bad music.
Yeah,
and it's trying to describe a way of not necessarily what you call Doom the way you think of it traditionally. And I think he nailed it spot on.
Right.
I think what you're showing there might be one of those examples.
And it is. It's very avant-garde, fueled, depressive black metal, but a lot of it's really slow. The guitar lines can be very mournful, almost desperate at times. And the way the layered lyrics, I can't remember Catherine is the lady's name, I can't remember, and Marco from Dionysus or Deinonychus, I don't know how you say that, but
Deinonychus, yeah.
Deinonychus, great, desperate vocals, screaming, retching, just miserable sounding. But I mean, if you maybe change the tone of the guitars, this could have been a Doom record. It gives me the same feel for sure. And again, throw garbage at me because, yeah, well, here we go, Black Doom. It's definitely, there's definitely some Doom in there.
They have they have a very interesting history to some of the way, all their stuff, even up to today. I mean, I don't know, they got a different singer now, but
Yeah.
I've always liked them.
Rick, do you have more?
Well, Jeff actually mentioned this band in the comments, and we were kind of talking about what challenges Doom. And so this band is Yelp.
Yep, folks have been talking about them in the
Really
comments.
good. Michael was a shite. He got, that guy has a very, like, you were bringing up Warning at the same time, and it just packs so much emotion. But the way I hear it here, he does it with the guitar. There's a way he just he can make you feel all kinds of things, and it's got elements of progressiveness along with the sludge, the wall sound. He can go moments of very it's hard to really describe because it's all over the place. This is an older release. This is from 2005. So this one is The Unreal Never Lived. The reason I'm showing this one is I feel like this is probably one of the most aggressive albums he's put out. Yeah, especially vocally. It's kind of angry. So I figured they're from Oregon. So very good band. They got a really good discography, and thought it was worth mentioning.
Sorry,
I've heard a little bit of Yob stuff, but just one or two here or there. I haven't really dived into them before.
It's hard to really recommend a particular album. I mean, you can start with the new stuff and work back. I mean, it depends on how much atmosphere you like and progressiveness. I mean, are you comfortable with the more sludgy material? If you want the more sludgy material, you might want to look into the earlier stuff.
Do you have anything else, Alan?
I will blast through some honorable mentions real quick because this was a really hard one for me to decide what to talk about and what not. So I will give the who's the lady on Banger TV who always has like 50 honorable mentions at the end? Sarah? I'll do a Sarah here. If you want to get in the epic side of doom metal, you've got stuff like Doom Sword, My Name Will Live On, great stuff.
Yeah.
Big Italian, this is very, very epic Man-O-War influence, but it's got a heavy doomy sound to it. Italian classic Dark Quarter, again, if it's fair to call it doom, I don't know. It's got that Man-O-War vibe, it's got that epic vibe, it's got that weird vibe, but I love it. Newer Italians doing doom correctly, Black Oath. They've done a few albums now. I've heard two of them, and really, really solid fundamental doom right there.
The vocals are not what you call traditional, the way you recognize doom. So it's very clean. Almost got these hooks. That
yeah, it does. It has good hooks. It absolutely does. Most folks, of course, know this, but this to me is probably going to become one of the modern Doom classics. Really blown away with this second album by Crypt Sermon.
The city I'm not aware of called Philly, I think, something like that.
Somewhere up the, I don't know, someplace up in the northeast, maybe. If you want a Black Sabbath clone who is unabashedly a Black Sabbath clone, but is a damn good Black Sabbath clone, check out especially the first album by Orchid. They make no bones about it. Every song title, everything is very blatantly Black Sabbath worship and ripoff, but they do it really, really well. If you like Reverend Bizarre but want the songs a little shorter and maybe not quite as goofy, but still with that strong finish sound, Spiritus Mortis was Albert Witchfinder's follow-up project. He's not in the band anymore, but they've done some cool albums. I actually like their stuff better than Reverend in general. And gotta mention, there's one other new wave of British heavy metal band that was kind of more doomy than most, besides Witchfinder General. Pagan Altar needs a shout out for sure.
They were a good band too, or are, so I don't know if they're together after.
That's my favorite one from them.
This is most people's favorite by them. Their stuff famously all came out much, much later after the fact. They only recorded, demo stuff back in the day. They never had a single or anything during the new wave of British heavy metal.
It's like night and day.
Yeah, but and this stuff, is it fair to call it doom? I don't know, but it's got doomy qualities about some of their music. By this point, they probably may have moved beyond doom, to be fair, but got to shout out Pagan Altar.
Father and son band.
Yeah, and one I wanted to rotate back to for just a moment, because I picked something that was very different than what Marty picked, was with My Dying Bride. Obviously, cornerstone of doom metal. And most people really gravitate to that early stuff, like you showed, Marty. Turn Loose the Swans is the album they have. It doesn't matter if that band keeps recording great albums for another 20 years. Everyone's just going to keep saying, yeah, but it's not Turn Loose the Swans. I feel like they're a band that, even though they've done a lot of great stuff, they're trapped in the shadow of that one record in particular.
A lot of legacy bands suffer from that.
Oh, yeah, they do.
And it's not the band's fault. I mean...
No, it happens. And again, it's the joke among heavy metal fans. The demo was always better. We like the first thing more than anything else they do. But after, like you said, My Dying Bride started doing some very different stuff very early on, by Angel in the Dark River with all clean vocals, and then following that up with like Gods of the Sun, and then the really strange 34.795 square root of 3 divided by 2.
Never heard that album.
I don't remember it being terrible, but it was definitely different.
Yeah.
They were drifting into weird territory and kind of jettisoning fans pretty quickly, and then they very quickly did a full about face with this album in '99, Light at the End of the World, and said, "Okay, that didn't work. We're going to go right back to what did work." And I always thought this was a fantastic return to form for the band. It reestablished them, and they've stayed the course very strong ever since then. They're always a band. I don't think they have any like A+ albums in this later part of their discography, but they're always worth checking out.
Couple Hours is one of my favorites. Like, if you could follow up that one.
I think I have bought every single My Dying Bride album that's ever come out. Sometimes I just buy digital copy instead. I don't have them all on physical copy, but every time it's just like, I want to see what they're doing. They're always worth a listen. But I always liked this one because I thought it really. Now, I liked Angel of the Dark River. I like Gods of the Sun, but I could tell the band was definitely kind of groping for a direction at that time. And so I thought this one I was so pleased with. It's just like, okay, if you want to go back and do what you do well, absolutely, this is the way to do it. So I'm Sarah, and this is Banger TV. This is the Marty Worm channel. And I'll shut up now.
I've got one more to show. I mean, there's so many I could have pulled, like Evoken. We didn't talk about Evoken. We didn't. There's hundreds of bands, but this band, maybe little known, this is Seder. This is their second album, Ganunga Gap.
Oh, yes.
I put this album out. This is Panopticon, Austin from Panopticon's Doom Band. And it's fantastic. They put out 2 albums. This is their second. I already said that. I'm kind of getting drunk. Sorry. This is a 2 CD set. It's very much like the title track. It's so fucking heavy, and Austin's vocals are so brutal and low. And They mixed in heavy death doom with a lot of spacey experimentation, long spacey instrumental jams, which sounds like me saying that spacey instrumental jams. It kind of like would take away from it, but this is just a very heavy, very emotional album. The last song is very long. It's Sweltering to the Pale Blue Dot in the Vast Dark. It features like a 7 or 8 minute long vocal cameo by Chet from Blood of the Black Owl. He just pours his guts out in this vocal thing. He's like screaming, his voice is breaking. It sounds like he's crying as he's screaming. It's just so emotional, and it pulls you along with the feel of this album. It's so damn good. And people slowly pick up on this. I still have copies of this for sale. It's been out for years.
That's criminal. That's criminal. Go buy that record. Both those Cider albums are amazing. I
think I've got it even on sale. I don't know, but this is definitely worth it. I even have their first album available as well. But this album is so fucking good. And they're such a good band. We talk about eventually putting this stuff out on vinyl, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think the first question I ever asked Austin when chatting online was like, any chance you're going to do another Seder album? Because, those two albums are fantastic. Listen, the For Winter Fire album, or the first one, Sweltering, I could listen to that.
This is basically him and Wesley Crowe, who is from the project Wheels Within Wheels. He's also in Hawkbill now, I think, playing bass. But it's their project. John Kerr plays drums with them as well live. I think Austin played the drums on this as well. But great fucking album. Great band.
It is amazing stuff. There's so many. We could just keep going and going and going with really quality doom bands, and we don't have to start. This will be a long time before we start, scraping, the tier 2 sound-alike wannabe stuff. It's a very rich genre.
It is.
It's got a lot of very high-quality bands that have lasted a long time. These bands, a lot of them have stuck around and really built a solid catalog of material for themselves.
It doesn't bleed badly like some other genres. I think it's not like hair metal. I don't know.
Yeah. But and it's one of those genres. It's never been the most popular genre, but it's also never burned itself out and had to kind of go back and reload the way some genres have either.
Yep.
So
there's a lot of space to do something new in it. I mean, I like this stuff. He doesn't follow the typical framework of doom. There's a lot of weird experimental shit going on in here. Like this. Call this black doom or whatever the hell you want. When you're playing slower, there's a lot of spaces that can be filled.
Makes you feel.
The bands that do that tend to be the ones that last longer.
Yep. Yeah, Jeff. And there's so many have been mentioned in the comments that just do different things. Jeff mentioned Esoteric a minute ago. Didn't get a chance to talk about them. What do we got?
They're a band where the discography, it doesn't change that drastically. I think because Greg Chandler, the guy behind it, is just like he's such an excellent musician. He's also the way I look at him like a Swano. He's able to just mix and engineer with such precision.
Yep.
And Jeff, I was going to grab a couple Mournful Congregation albums because I really like that band. I also like Ahab quite a bit, but they're bands that I've always liked and owned some stuff by, but I got them at a time where doom, I enjoyed it, but I never really threw myself into it like I did a lot of these albums I've shown tonight. A lot of these albums I've got a lot of history with. So I didn't feel good about picking up like the June Frost by Mournful Congregation. It's a great fucking record. It's like a doom record with like straight up heavy metal shredder solos on it. It's a weird juxtaposition there, but they're a great band. It's cool. People are Neurosis, Isis, Cult of Luna. And Rick, I gotta say, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. It was great having you, man.
Absolutely.
I got a few mentions.
Go for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I have to use the little boys' room while you're doing that. I'll be right back.
Eric mentioned this band. They're pretty good. Night Gone.
Oh, I've heard that name, but I have not checked them out.
Out of Italy. I feel like this would be your thing. They're really good. If you like the stuff coming out of Italy, they got a really good sound, really good production. This and they put out a let me say
Adding it to the list.
they got a really good 7-inch too, Jupiter's Fall. I think I got this one. What's that Canadian Temple of Mystery? I think that's the label.
Yeah, I've heard the name. For some reason, I was thinking of them more as like a new wave of traditional heavy metal band.
I didn't pull this one out because I thought maybe you might have shown it, the Black Oath.
Oh, yep.
This is a really good one. For anybody who may not be into the what you call the traditional epic doom, this is a little easier to digest. But you would not know they're from Italy. They have a certain kind of sound to them.
Yeah, there are a lot of bands that kind of follow that sound from the Swedish sound of Candlemass or Solitude or Turnus, whatnot, and a lot of them do it very well. But sometimes they get a little too copycat-ish. But I think Black Oath really does establish a good personality that's their own. I'm trying to remember. There was a band that begins with the letter I. It's not Eisentor, but there's somebody that begins with I that has. I mean, they're dead on Candlemass clones, and it's done well, but they always needed to inject a little of individuality into it. I haven't heard a lot of Arab Altar, but I kind of felt good. It's like, hey, this is good, but it's a little too close to their influences. But yeah, Black Oath definitely has their own identity without having the weird Italian vibe. You're exactly right.
So, Jeff mentioned Immortal Congregation. It's got this really cool split. It's a 4-way split. You know this one?
Yeah. I have it on CD.
So it's Lost. That song, when the first time I heard this band, Cut Up the Preston Alone, that's how you'll feel.
Yeah.
Altesanic. They're from the Philly area. It's got members from Pissgrave. You would never know. Orthodox sticks from Spain, and so it's like each band gets their own side. So you got 2 records here. They all get their. So each song was pretty long. I think the longest one here is probably the one from Orthodox. So this is the one I'm least familiar with. So it runs really long. Also, I thought I mentioned this band. Because he reached 1,000 subscribers, I thought I'd flaunt this.
Hey, they got a new album coming out this year.
Yeah, I can't wait. So, Mark G would see, and that photo of him. Oh man. Oh,
and we all used to have hair back in the day. Not all of us are like Jurgen and are perfectly preserved and still look like a teenager. Could be.
It's one of those, you'll wonder where they could have went, had they consistently put out stuff. But I think they were just as good as those other, other bands putting out stuff. Those Peaceful guys. And
they were different. I mean, they came out in the UK. I could see why I think Peaceful probably signed them up. They're a UK doom band. They were doing something a little different. Yeah, I don't know. Did they take off? I have no idea. I remember seeing that album on the shelves, but I was late to get it.
I think they had something going on with who was it? I think it was Century Media actually.
That's right. But yeah, I could see why they were. It was during the time when My Dying Bride was big and Paradise Lost, and they were one of those bands that were picked up during that time. Yep.
They were kind of piggybacking off that. Very cool though.
I'm surprised in a way that nobody mentioned like an early Paradise Lost or an early Anathema record tonight.
I tried to almost steer away from some of the obvious bands just because you guys might show it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I found myself listening to My Dying Bride more. I love the first few Paradise Lost albums. Gothic's a favorite, and Anathema is in that class too. I mean the big Peaceful 3, basically.
Yeah, for me, I like the later Anathema stuff a lot more than their early Death Doom. There's nothing wrong with it; it's solid, but I would pick My Dying Bride over them if I'm in the mood for that style. And if I'm in the mood for Anathema, I'm probably going to be in the mood for something more like, Weather Systems or Distant Satellites, the post-rock era of the band.
Well, that's what we got, folks. And I want to say thank you to everybody and Rick for coming with us tonight, and everybody that
For having me on.
do these every week. And I've been really trying to brainstorm on this stuff, and I've been wanting to think, maybe me and Alan should start a separate channel for these things. But man, building up a channel fucking sucks. It takes forever. It takes forever, and we would probably only be posting once a week. It feels, as these streams continue on, they might take a life of their own. I don't know that it should be just on my channel. The reason why we're doing it on my channel is because I have more subscribers, and there's the hope that you get more people watching you live, and I guess our views typically we go. I mean, all these episodes go around 1,500 views, which is great, and I don't know. We want to keep doing it. I'm having a great time with these things. I'm having a great time.
Oh yeah.
It's
Same
another
here.
way to show off, big quantities of the collection where I wouldn't have gotten around to it in my own personal videos. I'm not going to go through and do every single CD I own because it's ridiculous. It'd take for fucking ever. But I don't know. I guess leave comments. What do you think? Should we start a separate channel, come up with a name for it, and make it an event? I know future videos, we've got a lot of ideas. I know Alan is trying to get together a new wave of British heavy metal video, which I've got no skin in that game. I love Maiden, I love some Samson, Judas Priest. I like the obvious new wave of British heavy metal. I could not hang in that conversation. It could be on my channel. I could moderate it, or I'm always thinking about having Ken on there because Ken's pretty knowledgeable about the new wave of British heavy. Maybe it'll be on his channel. But what do you think? I mean, you guys are in the comments. Should we start our own channel? I mean, what do you think about this, Alan?
That's an interesting idea. I don't know. But yeah, I've got some ideas for the new wave of British heavy metal when Aaron was in the chat earlier.
Oh, yeah, Aaron.
But yeah, the idea is that, I'll probably be like, me, Ken, and Aaron may, carry the conversation, but Marty's definitely going to have a role to play in that for sure.
Yeah, I could just monitor the chats and post shit. And
just at the rotation of people, everybody has different knowledge in different areas. I think it's very interesting to bring all these different topics together.
Yeah, like Jürgen, it's 5:20 in Germany. He typically checks in every week with us. And actually, we'd love to have you on, Jürgen. If you can get your tech figured out, you're up anyway. If you can get your technology shit figured out, it's, typically you just need to get a camera. I don't know if you do all your videos off the phone, don't you? I mean, this is stuff we can talk about later, but I'm just curious. I just want to put it out there because it's something I've been thinking.
Jürgen, help me out here, Rick. Jürgen.
Got a great channel, by the way.
Yeah,
Absolutely. The stuff he shows is amazing.
Jürgen, every time he posts something I'm watching, I'm just, he's our age, and I see him like when it comes to thrash. I mean, he's in Repent. He's been in thrash bands since this shit started, and his collection is, worship.
It's If anybody isn't aware of his channel, go check it out now.
Yep.
Don't do it in the morning. Go bookmark it, subscribe now, and start working your way through it this weekend. His collection's great, and his knowledge is just unmatched.
Our views now are anywhere from 30 to 50. That's where we typically max out. 52 sometimes. It'd be great to have hundreds of people watching, but this is not for everyone. This is the type of thing. What's it say? Only channels with 1K can post about it, so staying on Marty's makes most sense. Yeah, for now. But if we decide to do a channel, it's gonna take a long time to build it up. We won't be able to do any community posts until you hit 1,000 subs.
This is a good springboard. I think people who are already on here, I think it'll spread pretty well if you start a new channel. You can have existing base of people going over and subscribing.
Yeah. But for now, it's here, and there might be times where I can't make it, and Alan wants to do something. It might be on his channel. It might be on whoever. We're just trying to get the most in front of as many people as we can because we're having a good time doing this, and it's cool to have the community interaction, and it's really cool that people watch these afterwards, and we're not going so long that it's hard to. I mean, like our initial streams were 8-hour marathons of people just getting drunk and bullshitting, which are great, and they have their time.
Some people do Saturday nights.
Yeah, and the Saturday night crew does that too. and those things have their time, but you get a community of guys talking about the same shit every week, it gets old kind of quick. So it's it's good to have a theme and ramble on from there. Yeah, like Jurgen said, the Contact and Blood, those guys do a great job, and this is probably somewhat inspired from that. I was quite inspired how well they could keep a conversation going, and their channel's growing as well.
Mhm.
And maybe we're doing it too much once a week. I don't know, but it feels good for now. There might be some weeks we're not here, but I don't know. Comments, leave your comments. Let's hear what you have to.
I think the 2.5 hours is a good sweet spot.
It is. Community feedback is always great.
Yep.
But we appreciate y'all for sitting and hanging out with us tonight, as always. And anybody have any final closing comments?
More doom on all of you.
Yeah, doom over the world.
I had thunderstorms today, so it worked out perfectly.
Right on.
We're gonna put a warning after this.
Rick, you're a beautiful and valid human being. Don't let's talk, man. we want you around. It's not that dreadful.
That's true. Maybe I'll just make a video instead.
Cool. Well, okay.
Thanks,
I guess we're going to jump out. Thanks again for everybody for watching, and we will see you next time, probably next week. We'll see. It might not be here. It might be the new wave of British heavy metal thing. I don't know, but we'll see.
We'll work it out.
One final thing. If you're waiting for your Panopticon pre-order, I'm working on it. There's a bunch, and I had some help last night. And there's a whole bunch of shit going out tomorrow and Monday, and we're going to be working on it all weekend. It's a lot to process. It's been since I've gotten the records, it's been basically just me packaging orders. So save your "where's my order" emails, because it just takes time for me to answer all these emails saying that it's coming, because I assure you it is coming. So
imagine having to take your whole collection and pack them up one at a time and label them and mail them to folks. That's what the man's dealing with.
And
right
I'm
now,
not
so
complaining. I'm going as fast as I can go, along with managing
give them some time
as well. So we're working at it. But thank you, everybody. You're all great. Have a good night. Thank you again, Rick.
Yeah, good night.
Y'all take care.
Cheers.
Been fun.
And